The Full Melt Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
Full Melt.
That we have to address. Excuse me. Sorry.
It's okay.
Allergy season.
That's a killer.
You all right?
How do you guys do it?
Any mouth CPR? You all right?
Did you just try to kiss?
Senator, you coughing like you got some medicinal.
Yeah, I need some.
It's the Full Metal Show.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
This is the Full Melt.
Give me a break.
The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. FullMelt.com.
All right, welcome to another Full Melt Show. Oh man, so much to talk about tonight. We are literally bursting at the seams this evening. News and information here on the Full Melt program. Man, we are late to air because so much is happening. Just unbelievable things going on. Including this microphone, hang on. Why does everything wants to argue with me at the last second before we go on the air? It's just equipment. It argues with me. All right, first things first. Wow, this looks different. I got to say it looks different. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I got to start the live streaming on the test app on the mobile broadcast. Oh, I got to name it first. All right, we're going to test. Just got to see if this is going to, if the mobile app is going to work. We have the whole mobile app in development, so I'm going to convert this to a stream, to an MP3. I'm just doing some checking on the mobile app, so we're just going to get that rolling right now. Connect to stream server. Hey, there we go. So we'll check on the progress of that later, and we'll do an update on the brand new mobile app. It's new technology coming to the face of the cannabis front this fall. In fact, it should be ready to get in the app stores here in a couple of weeks. It's been a long 3-year project coming. Boring details about that later, but it will be exciting when it comes. 36 months is a long time to wait. The Mad Blaster is not here tonight. Let's just get that out of the way, too. Let me see if we can get the Mad Blaster in. Where's Mad Blaster? Oh, he's in the other place. Got to check him. He was, I think he was doing some work today, and he was going to not come to the show because he wasn't getting off until, or he wasn't going to get home until like 8 o'clock. Let's see if we can find the Mad Blaster. Okay, here we go. We just went on the air. Head over if you can make it. I'm telling you, there is more stuff going on than I can keep track of at this point. Just had a text. We'll see if the text comes back on that. So, in the meanwhile, because I am here alone tonight, normally I've got the help of my friend Mad Blaster, who should be hopefully on his way over if he gets the message. If you hear it go whoop, we'll know something. He responded back at least. He generally will do that. So, let's just give you a synopsis, a little off the top here. I wanted to play this bit for you. In fact, I'm even going to stop and let the commercial break hit late. So I'm going to play this piece from you. I've got to do some audio switching here because, bear with me. There, where's it at? Here it is. So many chords in here. It's like a patch bay, like an old, there we go. Oh, that's terrible. An old 50s patch bay going on here. All right, where's the other piece of it? I need the remote. Here we go. Big news tonight starts with this. This is a piece. Terrible noise, terrible hum going on there. It'll correct in a second when I push play. This is off the record from PBS. If you missed the Tim Skubic show, they've been often following the cannabis controversy here in Michigan. Some new stuff is coming down the pike, including a set of bills. Here's the background.
And now, this edition of Off the Record with Tim Skubic.
Welcome back to Off the Record. Are we on the air? I guess we are. We're just sitting here having a great Friday morning.
This is a real professional operation.
Exactly. Can't you tell? All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really surprised, how surprised were you that medical marijuana moved in the Senate yesterday?
9.
9?
8.
9.
I'll give it 11. I think this absolutely came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Let's see what happened, okay? How important is this legislation to you and your daughter?
It's a matter of life and death.
This mom has a 7-year-old daughter who used to have seizures before she started taking medical marijuana, and the mom wants to make sure this industry is regulated by the state.
I need to know that she's protected and that I'm protected as well so that I can care for my family.
And a majority of senators believe this legislation will do that by imposing controls on the growing of medical marijuana, the distribution, the testing, and the sale.
There will be licenses for growers, licenses for dispensaries.
Lansing has been trying for years to control this business, and now this local lawmaker believes it will happen.
I think it's important that we give locals control. Obviously, in cities like Lansing, there are way too many dispensaries, and so it's important we give them control.
There is money in this industry, and a state senator says that's part of the reason why this passed.
There's a lot of money at stake for a lot of the players involved in this. A lot of money at stake for the wholesalers, the distributors, the retailers. There's a lot of money that's been donated to lawmakers to assist them in their decision making.
What about that charge?
I honestly don't believe lobbyists made much difference in this case. It was more the sheriffs and the chiefs of police and the cities and townships calling.
With Senate approval, the measure goes back to the House where final approval is anticipated. All right, let's just clear up that was Senator Colbeck who made the charge that money influenced the outcome of this vote, Ricky.
Well, he said, well, you know what? There is a lobbying industry that's grown up around this medical marijuana industry to try and get this legal.
Every lobbyist.
Which, by the way, I brought brownies.
Yeah, this is a professional show. We ought to just roll this tape back and start over again.
Your question.
I'm stunned. Okay, this is an absolute first. Okay, I'm going to ask you who cooked them, but my point
Let's
is,
just do don't ask, don't tell.
All the lobbyists in town
to the public how this is all now legal.
Well, we'll see if it gets to the House and goes to the governor. That what this package is meant to do, and they've been working on this for almost a year, is deal with a host of holes and ambiguities that were in the 2008 voter-adopted Medical Marijuana Act. And one of the things that's gone on is there's been a proliferation of dispensaries for medical marijuana, a lot of legal wrangling over that, questions over if you've got a brownie and someone has it illegally, how do you measure the amount of whatever is illegal in it? Is it the marijuana? Is it the extract? Is it the weight of the brownie? This deals with that. It allows local governments to license. It requires the dispensaries to be licensed, but local governments, just like they do now with bars, can set conditions on where they can be located vis-a-vis schools and churches.
Can they say we don't want any dispensaries?
I guess that I don't have an answer for that, but I guess if you decide that you're not going to license any, then it's up to that. That could be a matter of litigation. But you can make a decision that dispensaries will only go in a certain particular area.
So what do you make of this?
Well, it's fascinating. I mean, if you've been covering this for the past 8 years, since 2008, I mean, the folks who wrote that law purposely will say we wrote it, incredibly open. That
Bill Schuette called it Swiss cheese.
He called it Swiss cheese once, not Swiss brownies, obviously. But no, and so after these 8 years of going back and forth, I mean, I think most folks realize that there needed to be some regulations. I think what we were all surprised at is how quickly it passed. I gave it an 8, though, because with this legislature, I mean, I don't think we always are surprised when something happens.
Well, I was also surprised
by
the scope of it. That this, between the regulation, what they're doing with the different tiers of growers and distributors and retailers, that this really is setting the stage for a real medical marijuana industry. And Patrick Colbeck was not entirely incorrect when he said it could be setting the stage for marijuana legalization. And
let's be honest, that's
the tax revenue.
And right,
it's about $3 million is the ballpark number, which I thought the number would be higher.
Well, I think in Colorado, the first year after it was legalized, I want to say it was between $60 and $80 million.
But that was legalization of pot.
Absolutely. That was complete legalization. Yeah. And, of course, this is just, again, the medical marijuana. But I think what we are seeing across the country is some loosening up of the ideas about whether or not it needs to be decriminalized or completely legalized.
But why would this be the camel's nose under the tent? This is medical marijuana.
Because in so many other states, in Colorado and Washington also, medical marijuana was the nose under the tent. And then it gets legalized. Katie barred the door, and look, it's coming in Michigan.
This legislature is not
a system that could be transitioned to from a medical marijuana system.
Excuse me, have you been eating your brownies? this Republican legislature is going to legalize
what
pot?
Bill said was it's coming. He didn't say it was going to be this legislature.
Oh, okay. All right. So we agree it won't be this legislature.
Well, right now, look.
No.
Okay, thank you.
It may be that right now, as is often the case, that in many respects this is being governed by national organizations and national strategy, and they have set 2020 as the target year for Michigan. The marijuana legalization proponents in the state don't want to wait that long.
They'd like to do 2018.
They would have liked to have
the
done
Michigan
2016.
Supreme Court said this week, pooey on putting this thing on the ballot, simply not going to happen.
Right.
And now they're talking about going to the Supreme Court.
Well, they're in the Supreme Court, and we'll probably hear that. I'm sorry, they are going to the Supreme Court, and they're getting ready to do it as soon as possible.
Well, we've seen Jeffrey Hank just basically take it up the ladder. He was a guest here and Off the Record talking about it. But right now, I mean, what I think it's fair to say is there will not be any ballot initiatives in November, which is fascinating when you consider in 2012, the last time there was a presidential election, it was Ballot Palooza, and there were 6 of them.
Yeah.
Remember, we waited 11 months for this to all of a sudden be sprung on us yesterday. That's how long it sat in Senate committee, and everybody thought
it passed the House in March.
It's never going to go. And the other thing is, remember, they had a high hurdle. A lot of people don't realize this. When you have a ballot proposal passed, the legislature has to get 3/4 majority on the key thing. So they had to muster a real bipartisan coalition. So look, hats off to the legislature. It shows you can have bipartisan cooperation when it
and
comes
make
to
difficult
pot.
things happen. Actually, because you're right, and we were watching those votes as they were coming down, and the one that actually amended the Medical Marijuana Act was the last one, and they were all being done with slimmer majorities than that. And so we're like, can it happen? And
the legislature, they smoked the peace pipe after all yesterday.
Well, and there is money to be made by people. Look at that hallway yesterday was filled with all of the lobbyists representing all of the. Look at, if you want to get a truck, okay, you can haul this stuff across. Okay, if you want to set up a store, you can sell it. If you want to test it, did money influence the outcome of this vote?
Well, I think to a very limited extent. I think it shows that the legislature can act with incredible speed if it wants to.
Sure.
And I mean, in
most
a sense,
of the time it doesn't. But
well, most of the time it doesn't, and everybody beats up on the legislature. But when they want to, usually they have things on issues like this in place to go in a heartbeat if they want to move it. And if they do, boom.
Although to Tim's question, I think you're onto something, that this was never going to happen without a professional lobbying effort, without a professional lobbying strategy, and that certainly made a huge difference.
It was interesting. I walked by Mr. Meekoff, the Republican leader, about halfway. He says, "You didn't see that coming, did you?" Okay, that's one Meekoff, 0 stupid.
I mean, this isn't over. That there were local governments and law enforcement saying that, we want some certainty, that we would like to see some rules surrounding this so we know what we're doing. But there's still some, never say die.
The bureaucracy now has to draft the rules for this.
Absolutely.
You thought this was fun.
And look, across the state, we've seen a patchwork of laws in various communities. We had Lansing and Jackson and Ferndale.
But now we have all the sheriffs down in Oakland, Macomb County say, "Whoops, wait a second, guys. There's a felony. If you had a felony, after 10 years, you could get a license.
You can run it.
Why are they complaining about that?
I mean, they're law and order cops, and any sign that the criminal element might infiltrate a legalized pursuit makes them nervous.
Well, and there are certainly, law enforcement people who are just never going to cry uncle on the issue of allowing dispensaries to distribute marijuana when it's still a federal crime.
They dangled the veto through. We're going to ask does the governor respond to law enforcement, or does he sign this puppy? Assuming the House
if the legislature sends this to the governor,
he'll sign it.
Especially because it was bipartisan. It's hard for me to believe that he said
All right. DEQ director was before the confirmation hearing. What did we learn about Ms. Heidi Grether that we didn't know before?
I don't think we learned anything about Heidi Grether that we didn't know before. That
she did make a semi-defense of her tenure at BP as a lobbyist for them. So you know what? This primed me to deal with crisis.
All right, so there you have it. There you have it. I'm going to get rid of this nasty noise because it's terrible. If we're not playing the piece, it gets loud and ugly. It's just the hum. There's an audio hum coming from the television set from which that was playing. So there's the background on what's going on. Also happening, you heard, so 2 things in that piece. the first thing, dings are coming. Dings are coming. Things are happening. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. We got some people calling in. People always want to text while I'm doing the show. I can't really do that easily. I get dinged out while I'm trying to do the show. So here we go. The two things that you heard on this piece, the two major points were, first off, the legislature is passing a set of bills. And I would give them a chance of 9 in 10 of them getting this done. In fact, it's nearly 100% chance that they're going to get that done, unless there's some last-minute wrangling by the Sheriff's Association and Mike Duchard. That's what I did there, Mike Duchard. Because he's completely a douche. Rick Jones, another media whore, doesn't give a crap about people. Apparently he's turned on his own sheriff's friends over this issue, saying that, I don't know. I don't even know what to think about these people anymore, because you don't know who's getting paid off or getting a reach around in the back rooms of the legislature there. You just don't know. You don't see what's happening unless you're up there, and sometimes I do see stuff happening. Or you overhear conversations about things. So they're doing a package of bills. One of them directly amending the largest bill, 4209, that they referred to, is amending the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. And it is completely trying to replace the patient caregiver system. Now, there's some controversy over that. And let me see if I can get my friend Jamie Lowell on the phone here. Jamie, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me? It's not a great connection, I can tell you that. But if you hear me, I guess we're all right.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear us all right?
Good. Yeah, I can. Good enough.
All right. So
barely.
I do have to go to commercial break here, Jamie. It's coming up any second here, in fact. But I thank you for hanging on. Jamie's been listening since the beginning of the show and wanted to chime in about this whole thing, and I thank you for doing that. When we come back on the other side of the break here, Jamie, we're going to have David Rudoy on the line, if everything goes as planned. Attorney David Rudoy is obviously very interested in this matter, as are other attorneys. There's a lot of attorneys I couldn't even get to come on the program tonight. You know why? Because business is so great with all these bills changing. People want to know what the hell is going on and how does this affect me?
They're salivating over how rich they're going to be.
Yeah, that's right.
So many people.
You got that right. You got that. Hang on, Jamie. We're going to break right now. We'll be back on the other side with Jamie Lowell and David Rudoy on the Full Melt Show. Lots and lots of stuff to come. Don't you dare go away. You're getting the Full Melt.
Your pets aren't just animals, they're members of your family. That's why we are excitedly wagging our tail about our hemp-based product that caters specifically to your best friend. Hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats, and really all kinds of pets. Hemp well drops are made from virgin, cold-pressed organic hemp oil. Our extraction process ensures the highest quality oil for your pet, with superior taste, smell, and nutrition. We hold ourselves to the highest standards, never using heat, chemicals, or preservatives in making our hemp oil products for pets. Pick up a bottle of Hempwell drops today at select retailers or online at hempwell.com. Hempwell. Hemp health for pets.
If you missed the last Full Melt Show, you missed a lot.
Yes, sir. We are just here to get you qualified, okay, for the lower interest rates.
This is a Visa card.
Okay. It's a Visa card, starts at 4, right?
So why do you need the numbers off the card?
I was going to let you know, what is your new interest rate going to be and what you qualified for, okay?
Well, wouldn't it be a security risk if I was to give my card number over the phone?
Sure, we are the one who sent you the billing statement every month.
Aren't you really just a liar? Aren't you just lying about this? Aren't you just trying to steal my credit card number? Oh, you are, you little piece of shit. You're a little fucking liar, aren't you? You're a little foreign piece of shit, aren't you? You're a little foreign fucking puke, aren't you?
That's what you are. You fucking piece of shit.
Oh no, you get to suck my fucking American dick, you foreign piece of fucking shit. There you go. That's how you do that.
Imagine a world where patients can use marijuana like any other medicine. The Marijuana Patients Organization challenges the status quo by helping our neighbors to enjoy a better quality of life. Visit the MPO at marijuanapatients.org and enjoy informative articles, engaging debates, and information about treatments, doctors, and dispensaries in your area. Over 50,000 people have registered at marijuanapatients.org since 2010. Join us at the Marijuana Patients Organization today, marijuanapatients.org.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law at RudoyLaw.com. RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana and up-to-date news. That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release. We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions? Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade, you got this.
Wish your skin could bounce back like it used to? Neutrogena Hydro Boost Water Gel instantly quenches skin to keep it supple and hydrated day after day. With hydrating hyaluronic acid, which retains up to 1,000 times its weight in water. This refreshing water gel plumps skin cells with intense hydration and locks it in.
For supple, hydrated skin that bounces back.
Hydro Boost from Neutrogena. See what's possible.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show. Radio Show. On the Full Melt Show, a full night of stuff happening as we progress into this election cycle. It's only going to get more tenuous and crazy across the country. People are waiting with bated breath about what this means or doesn't mean for our state here in Michigan. It really only matters, I suppose, to the people that care about constitutional law, that care about having some say in getting legislation done. Jamie, I suppose we could talk all day about how long the legislature carrot and stick to us, the medical marijuana community, both patients and caregivers and everybody that matters and cares. Bear with me. With us on the phone also right now is David Rudoy. David, are you there?
Yes.
All right. Let me just
Can
make
you
sure.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You hear us okay?
It's coming through a little garbled for me.
A little garbled? Is it a little too loud?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just coming through garbled. I'm not sure why.
Okay.
That's Steve gargling when he speaks again.
Can you hear Jamie talking there, David?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I can.
He was saying some snide gay remarks about me, so it's typical Jamie.
It is funny. He's coming through a lot clearer than you, though. So maybe you are garbling.
I don't know. I don't know. Is that a little better? Can you hear me? Oh, hang on. I got a dirty pot. Hang on. Dirty. There's nothing. Hate it when you get a dirty. Okay, there we go. Is that a little better now?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, well, I'm glad we got everything working. It's great to hear that the phone lines are actually working, because those things can be pain in the ass sometimes. But now that we got everything up and running, we've been playing some stuff. Did you happen to catch, David, you ever watch Off the Record with Tim Skubic?
I did not catch this one.
So they spent a good 10 minutes talking about the whole legislature thing and the bills that they passed, kind of boom out of the dark there on last Thursday, at least on the Senate side. And now this stuff is going to over to the House, and the Reconciliation Committee is going to hear this tomorrow, aren't they?
They're going to, I think.
And what do you think? If you put your spidey sense, if you get a spidey tingle there about what they might be doing over there at the Michigan House, do you think they're just going to capitulate to the Senate's changes?
Yes, 100%.
I think so too. Jamie, your vote?
Well, I think what's going to happen is they may have some changes in the House, but they will get resolved very quickly, and it'll go through the process. But I don't think I think there's some talk of maybe some minor tweaks, but it'll all go.
What sort of tweaks do you think, Jamie?
I'm not sure, but there's some talk of them. I hope that there's some people double questioning the Senate Bill 1014 a little bit. I don't know if that's on the table or not, but that's something new for them to consider at It alleviates the panels from having to follow the same administrative rules as other committees and panels and things like that. And I don't know what they're thinking about. I only heard that there was some calls going on and people asking for advice on some minor changes and things like that. So it's at least being discussed.
If I was guessing, I would think that they're going to try and throw in some monopolization of secured transport again. But that's just a guess, you know.
Some people, well, on the other end of the spectrum, some people were talking about limited, larger grows, limited, unlimited plant grows, licenses, and some other things like that. But I'm not sure if that'll happen.
I wonder why people are talking about ideas like that. Could it be that they have some donors that are interested in such things? I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe.
I have a pretty after these bills passed, I have a pretty cynical view of what the fuck our legislature is doing and what they're doing it for. Because to me, these bills passing shows that with enough money, you can really push through some bullshit through the Senate, and that's what these bills represent to me. Is let's sell out marijuana to corporate interests.
Well,
I know.
I was going to say, didn't they do that before, David? I mean, they did this very quickly when they came along and passed they already have a bill in place for marijuana. Should they ever schedule it to 2? Don't they? I mean, they just passed that stuff really quick at their request with a lot of money spent, a lot of people flown up north to the UP mines.
Are you talking about the pharmaceutical grade marijuana bill?
I am. Yep. That's one example
of
something they did very quickly.
I mean, I guess we already knew that, but with Senate Bill 660, it was a little different because I think most of the legislatures were kind of thinking, well, this bill only is effective once marijuana gets rescheduled to Schedule 2 by the federal government. So we're not really changing anything right now. And why not? If the federal government says we can have pharmaceutical grade, let's do it, And I think that they were able to get away with that one a lot more because it didn't change anything right away. Whereas this set of bills is basically a set of bills that, cuts out caregivers, cuts out small business to a large degree, is very clearly favorable to the rich.
Does it say anything specifically about caregivers? I noticed there are a couple of things there, but I didn't read anything in the bill that says caregivers will be replaced by this system.
Yeah,
you're correct.
Commercial life, you cannot be a caregiver. And caregivers, it's now like a 2-year felony to sell directly to a dispensary. They're cut
Correct.
out.
Those are the two places that caregivers are mentioned in. Sorry, Jamie. Sorry for cutting you off.
No, okay, that's it. Go ahead.
The two places that caregivers are mentioned in these bills is caregivers cannot be licensed growers, and caregivers, they added a new felony for a caregiver selling to a dispensary. What a horrible thing for a caregiver to do to get rid of their medicine to a place where patients would get it.
Right.
They had to create a new felony for that. It's very clear that, and especially when you know the legislative history of this thing, what was it? 2 years ago, when these bills originally passed the House, these bills said that caregivers could sell overages at 50 ounces every 2 months to dispensaries, a reasonable amount of overages, which I was, at the time, not happy with that number. I thought it should have been higher. But instead, and then you watch how not only did they take out the ability for caregivers to sell to dispensaries, put in seed-to-sale tracking to track and make sure caregivers aren't selling to dispensaries, but they even went over the top and added an extra felony. And if you look what happened in Canada, as an example, it would lead to the next step being, once they have this whole system in place, they're going to say, what do we need caregivers for? Patients can get their meds through this system that we set up, and it's highly regulated. We can control quality with our secured testing or with our testing facilities.
Essentially, we've come up with. Essentially, David, they're going to say we've come up with a better system, so use that one because yours stinks. It's full of Swiss cheese holes.
Exactly, and they're going to quote all these judges who have capitulated, and these judges who have said, "Oh, the Medical Marijuana Act is the worst piece of legislation ever written." These judges always say this because And what I always want to remind them is it's only bad because you fucks have ruined it.
Right.
You know, the Medical Marijuana Act is pretty clear. When we all read the Medical Marijuana Act in 2008 or 2009, it seemed pretty obvious to me, as I was a law student actually still at the time. And it seemed like all these protections were going to be there. You would be able to be a primary caregiver, but you'd also be able to be a secondary caregiver to people. All these things seemed really clear. And all the problems with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act and the so-called ambiguities are there because judges are choosing to interpret them in the narrowest way possible. And that's the judges and the prosecutors are the ones that created the confusion. Jesse Williams is the person. I remember I was writing in law school. As soon as this act came out, I was writing a paper on it for school. And Jesse Williams was the guy I called for his interpretation. And he goes, this isn't fucking hard to interpret. This is clear as day what this act is meant to do. The problem is these prosecutors and judges who are trying to find ways to still throw people in jail for marijuana.
Well, because isn't there a direct conflict of interest in this? Because these people are making clear money on this. I mean, they're being paid to prosecute people and to put them in prison.
And especially with civil forfeiture, I mean, not even getting into the whole privatization of the prison system and, you know, judges making money through their campaigns on keeping people drug testing and doing all sorts of testing and probation terms, and the fact that the courts make money keeping somebody on probation and charge people money for putting them in jail. Getting rid of all of that stuff, you know, it's very clear that the judges did not, I mean, we know from the statistics that marijuana possession is like the most common crime in Michigan that people end up doing probation for, paying fines and costs for, and that's what's funding these court systems. DUI arrests are down. People are drinking and driving less. That was the other big one that was making the courts all their money. They can't lose marijuana, too, and they fought tooth and nail to try and say that this act isn't good and creating loopholes in it so that they can continue to prosecute people. And the next step, because they want to be able to continue prosecuting people, is they want to say that caregiving is no longer legal. And I know it doesn't say that in the act, and all the people that championed these bills, you know, different organizations that claim to be representing patients' rights, and I'm not calling out the MPRA, I'm saying all of these organizations, they want to say, well, these bills don't say that caregivers don't have to exist anymore. But if you look at other states and you look at Canada, you look at the examples, what happens is that first the corporations create a system like this, they create licensing, and then soon to come is when they're going to say, we already have, this system's better, we don't need caregivers, we don't need home grows. And that's what's next. And everybody's going to keep growing at home. They're going to keep doing what they're doing. And, unfortunately, or fortunately for me, the courts and defense lawyers are going to be the ones who really benefit from this set of bills. Because the way the bills are designed, people still have an incentive to grow their own, because I believe these bills are going to lower the quality of the marijuana that's in the stores and up the price. And so there's going to be a huge incentive to continue home growing, but it's going to still be illegal to sell to anybody besides your 5 patients, and people like me are going to be the ones that benefit. I guess I should be happy about that, but I'm pretty pissed off.
Well, yeah, because, patients and caregivers are the people that you represent, and they're getting screwed by this.
Exactly. You know, if I was only motivated by money, I guess I would be happy with these bills. But I'm motivated by more than that. I'm motivated by, the people whose lives I've seen ruined for the past 7 years since the passage of the MMMA, and not wanting to see lives get ruined for people that are trying to legitimately use medical marijuana or grow medical marijuana to help benefit other people. And I'm sick of, I think the MMMA, while good-intentioned, has failed in a lot of ways in actually protecting people. And what I wanted from these bills was a way to extend the MMMA, extend the protections that go to patients and caregivers and dispensary owners. And what these bills really have done is only extended those protections for a select few people And I very highly suspect it's going to be a select few people with lots of money.
Right.
And it's going to cut out poor people. If you don't have, hundreds of thousands of dollars minimum, you're not going to be able to get one of these licenses. And it doesn't say that in the law, but you can read between the lines and see that's what's going to happen.
So just a quick question, because I got more than one. And incidentally, if you got questions about this too, and we've got time to squeeze them in, 248-278-8067. Call in and talk to our guests, Jamie Lowell right now, and also David Rudoy while he's got time. David, does this bill do anything to shut down existing dispensaries? Does it force them to go through the licensing procedure? Does it say that specifically?
Yes.
So it's saying dispensaries.
I mean, the only
dispensaries right now.
It doesn't say.
Go ahead.
It doesn't say they get shut down, but what it says is if you want to be legal, you have to be licensed.
So you have to get a state license.
The only way you're going to get the protections of 4209 is to get licensed through the state. And there is no grandfather-in clause. And I've seen some posts on Facebook recently about grandfathering in, which was language that was in probably 5 versions of this bill ago.
So it basically is going to, and here's the bigger picture that I see coming out of this. And correct me if I'm wrong, or correct me if you disagree with me. But I think what's coming down the pike here is they're kind of putting this to a pinnacle in legislative terms, in legal terms, so that at some point Bill Schuette is going to be forced by all the people with all those money that are making all those license applications to go in and shut down these dispensaries with an order to the state police and just get the state police to shut them all down on the same day. Just go in and do it. Because there's no way that they will be able to keep this model up and running and the state to get its tax money out of this and everybody's pockets to get lined if these guys are up and running and a competing force. I think they'll snuff out the competition by force.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair, guess at what's going to happen or fair prediction. It's very hard to say how things are going to go as this goes on. What I really worry about is that what's written into this law is that if you have any drug charge in the last 5 years, doesn't even matter if it's a misdemeanor, you will not be able to get licensed. So
you just said that caregivers can't be licensed anyways.
Yeah, you could give up your caregiver status to get the license. So you can do that. You just can't be a caregiver and a licensed commercial grower at the same time.
Okay.
But what I worry about is, so they don't like, let's say, state police in Wayne County don't want these dispensaries to exist and maybe even targeting certain ones. And they know that all they have to get is some drug-related charge on them, and they won't be able to have a state license. Well, what's to stop them from going and wanting to bust these guys before? Because after this law becomes effective, it's still another 360 days before you can apply for a license. And then even after you can apply, there's going to be another amount of time before you can actually get through the whole licensing process.
Well,
so
not only that, but then actually get the grow up and
gonna...
running. Not only that, but get the grow up and running, the whole operation actually working. It's going to take 6 months or so just to get the medicine going from the time that you plant the first seeds.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is they're going to try and bust as many people as possible before you can get licensed. Once you're licensed, you're protected. But before that, before you get the license, if they can get a charge on you, you're cut out of the system. You're cut out of this licensing system.
Even if the charge doesn't stick, even if the charge is thrown out?
No, if the charge is thrown out, you're okay. But we're in with this law, it's not retroactively applying to dispensaries, and it only applies to dispensaries, specifically concerning dispensaries that are licensed. So they could go to any one of these dispensaries that exist out there and bust them. And if they can get them even on something simple like possessing too much marijuana outside of Section 8, just possession, not even with intent to deliver or something, or they can get them on one delivery to an undercover cop that are very hard to win Section 8s in those cases. If they get one of those, then you're cut out of the system. So what I have a feeling could be coming out of some of these police departments is that they're going to try and bust as many people as they can before they can get licensed and make sure that those people aren't part of this system. However, I think probably anyways those people are going to get cut out even if the cops don't do that, because ultimately there's no there's nothing in this law that says if you comply with the rules that they set up that they have to give you a license.
Right.
You know, there's a board, and it's going to be in the board's hands who gets licensed and who doesn't. And there's nothing that says they have to grant a license to anybody.
Well,
and that scares me because it puts a lot of power in a small group of people who are going to be appointed by the governor.
Right.
Appointed by the governor, our favorite governor of all time here in Michigan. He's going to be the one very likely appointing this board.
Because he's made great appointments before, right? He's got such a great history of making appointments, doesn't he?
Oh, great history. So, I mean, it's really fucked. This system, you know, I have to recognize that there are good things here.
Well, one of them,
the good news is...
Let me say one thing, because I noticed this. It's very odd that they put this in here, too, because I guess this would only be answering an argument. But there's the other place that I noticed caregivers are specifically mentioned, and we didn't talk about that, because you said there are a couple places. You mentioned one, but I don't think you mentioned the other. I think the other place, if I'm not mistaken, is they say if you're going to be a licensee of a grow operation, that you must have a caregiver with at least 2 years' experience on staff until 2021.
Which is, yeah, it is a very odd thing that they put that in there, to be honest with you. I guess, you know, I don't really understand all of the aspects of why. I can't even imagine what their motivation is besides hoping that the quality of the meds will be high. By having somebody with a couple years' experience working there. But it is a very odd... There's a lot of aspects of these laws where I read through them and I just say, like, what the fuck? Who pushed for this to be added in? You know? Because it's some very odd interests. You know, there were, I think, 15 different lobbyists working on these bills, working for different people's interests.
Right.
So every time I read something that's been changed in these laws, I think of, like, whose interest is this serving, you know? And that one I really just can't. That one kind of flabbergasts me because I just really don't have a good answer.
Well, it does provide at least some place for caregivers to go after the end of their operations, because I've been saying all along that caregiving as we know it in this state after these bills are passed is over. History.
Well, it's not over. It's going to take some more time.
Not right away.
Looking at examples from other states, usually what they do is they set up this system first, and then they wait for the system to get up and running, and then they say, hey, we've got a system. Patients get their medicine. We can provide for all the patients in Michigan. We don't need this caregiver system anymore. And then there's going to be those of us saying, no, wait, hold on, because a lot of patients require large amounts of marijuana and can't afford to buy their marijuana through this 4209 system. You know, if you're an epilepsy patient who requires, 2 grams of high-grade oil, Simpson oil per day, you're not going to be able to afford buying that from a dispensary. You need a caregiver or the ability to grow for yourself. So
right.
It'll be interesting to see that political fight. But, the corporations, the rich guys are going to want to slowly monopolize more and more of this system as much as they can. And we know that our legislatures give in to big money interests, So it's really scary what the future holds for the average caregiver. I'm really worried about that. I'm really worried about, I think that caregiving, people's ability, people who can't work, ability to be able to grow some medicine for people, and it gives them purpose. They really, people really feel as though they're doing some real good in this world.
Right.
They're helping people with their health problems. They're making enough money to survive. Most of these people are not getting rich off growing marijuana.
No.
They're making just enough to survive, And it's been a good thing for a lot of people, having that ability to be caregivers. And when they get cut out, what I fear is that they're not going to stop caregiving. They're going to keep doing what they're doing because they don't really have a lot of other options. And then they're going to get busted. And my phone's going to be ringing off the hook, but people are going to be getting fucked,
Well, you said there were some other good things about this bill. What are the good things? That patients can now use medibles in this package of bills? Is that one of the good things?
Yeah, I mean, here's the good things. Undeniable that people that don't have access to marijuana, medical marijuana right now, under this current system where in a lot of areas there are no dispensaries, they will have a place to get quality medicine, hopefully, at least a high enough quality so that they can treat their symptoms. Like I think about like the grandmother who doesn't know anybody who grows marijuana, has never used marijuana in her life, and she suffers from severe pain and has been taking opiate painkillers for years and wants another choice. And her doctor prescribes her or certifies her for medical marijuana. And then she gets that certification and she says, now what? Where do I get the weed from? There's a lot of people out there that don't have access to quality meds. They don't know caregivers. And, there are websites out there to help make these connections, and there's people out there. But there's a lot of people out there who have no idea, and they don't know where to look. And so to have more access to medicine for patients generally is a good thing. These sick people need to be able to, and I think more choice, because for a lot of patients to have just one caregiver, they might not be able to experiment to find the medicine that works best for them, to find the best phenotype, to find the best form of the medicine. And the other major thing in these bills, obviously the edibles aspect, 4210. I'm actually not that. 4210 has some real bullshit in it, but as far as labeling and packaging, and I don't even want to get into that. Right. But the fact that we're not telling lung cancer patients and children they have to smoke marijuana anymore, that we're opening it up that you can use other forms of marijuana, I think is really important. When we're looking at marijuana as a medicine, there are a lot of different ways to take it. And right now, a bunch of those ways are considered either not covered under Section 4, not covered under Section 8, not covered under the Act at all, or at best covered under Section 8, where you have to go, you can still be prosecuted, arrested, have your medicine stolen from you, and maybe I can go win your case in court, but that's still, your life is ruined in a lot of ways. And, the idea of telling children, pediatric cannabis patients that they're not allowed to use oils is ridiculous. That we want them to smoke it is just insane. So there are a couple positive. I mean, I can't ignore that there are some positives here, but the system, overall the bills are shit.
Isn't it odd that the legislature would put a cap on a THC limit on whole flower cannabis, but then also allow for extracts, which there is no limit on?
None of it makes it. I mean, the cap on flower THC is insane. I don't understand. I had this conversation with a police officer, I won't name who it is, the other day, who was trying to tell me about the dangers of cannabis. And he was giving me this argument. The cannabis in the 60s and 70s was, 3% THC, and now it's 30. And I said, okay, let's just pretend that that's true, which it's not. But I'll accept your premise for the purpose of this argument. Why is it a bad thing that people would have to smoke less marijuana? Like, if you're saying that it's bad and it has negative health consequences, would you rather people have to smoke a gram or a hit? Right. Higher potency means you have to use less. This whole idea of limiting potency of marijuana is insane. I can't even, on a drug that you can't overdose
potency
from. I could understand
like
if you were limiting it.
Say again, Jamie?
No, I agree with David for different reasons. The potency argument, it might be understood by a layperson that, the higher the potency, the less you need. But the reality is the number that you get associated with the flower in terms of THC does not necessarily mean it's stronger to that person.
Well, right.
Yeah, I mean, that too. But either way, like, why would we not want more potent? If smoking it creates tar, and I don't actually believe that, in really negative health repercussions from marijuana use, but these are their arguments. They believe that it's bad for you in some way. Well, if that's true, then why not make it as potent as possible so you have to use as little of it as possible?
Hey, there's a great argument. That's a great argument, David.
It just doesn't make
I
sense, which is
understand
the
that point a
whole
lot. And all
argument
these
for extracts,
restrictions-
too.
You both were talking at the same time. First David, then Jamie?
No, Jamie first.
Okay, Jamie first.
I was just going to add in that all of these restrictions are based on these phantom public health and safety concerns that don't really exist, that are just used as the basis to really tighten down these controls.
Yeah, I mean, the one of the things that angers me the most about these is those potency limits for flower cannabis, because it really is. It's like these senators watched Reefer Madness or something, and are believing, like what Jamie said, it's all these so-called health and public safety concerns that actually don't exist.
Well,
and
they're false arguments.
So ridiculous.
They're straw men.
I mean, I understand. I think there's a legitimate debate to be had about edible potency, and some safety concerns around potency, because there's a real issue for some people. They can eat 500 milligrams of THC, and another person, if they have 25, they're going to hallucinate. So there are some concerns about dosage and having some
There
more
always
control
has been,
over
and
it.
you have to teach people how to self-titrate. That just comes with the territory. And sometimes people
Yeah,
learn
exactly.
the hard
But I'm
way.
just saying
The good
there's
news is nobody ever really
a
hurts
legitimate
themselves.
debate about the whole Denver thing. Denver limited their recreational edibles to 10 milligrams per package that you can buy. And a lot of people find it extremely annoying if you're somebody that requires a 100 milligram dose to have an effect. Having to buy 10 of those is quite annoying.
Well, it's
But
also fattening. I mean, there are some people who don't want to consume that many calories for various reasons, trying to get a single dose in them.
Yeah, I mean, but my point is that there's a legitimate debate there. Like, people do, I wouldn't say overdose, because that has a lot of connotations, but people do take too much edibles. When they don't know, and it's about Jamie is exactly right. I mean, there's a way easier way to handle that, which is about education.
Right.
And
which is why the caregiver model is so good. I mean, that's one of the reasons the caregiver model works so well, because the caregiver is educated to tell their patients and say, look, this is what this dosage is. When you eat part of this, you're going to just take part of this, not the whole thing. And this is what and then if you start to build a tolerance, you're going to take some more as you go, but you're going to want to give it some pause. Here's the conditions under which you should eat it. Here's something to do to counteract it if you think you got too much in you. I mean, this is what a caregiver does.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also, I have issues with the caregivers as well, because, the problem does come when caregivers are not educated either, and don't do their job.
Right.
I think it's about getting information out there to people. But with whatever the arguments are, and I think there's a legitimate debate about edibles and strengths and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that I'm on the side that we don't need restrictions on how strong edibles can be. We just need people to be educated about the dosages.
Right.
But because it can't kill you, the worst case scenario is you're too high. But the flower thing and having a restriction on the potency of flower, that just doesn't make any sense. There's no I can't even think of who they think that's benefiting.
Well, that's still a propaganda type thinking when they're crafting this law. Oh, we better the THC is the dangerous thing. That's the devil in the lettuce right there. You're gonna put some kind of limit on that, or everybody's gonna be running off and jumping off bridges and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's reefer madness shit.
Yeah,
I really think it is.
Now let me ask you this, Jamie. You got a comment? Go ahead and say something first.
Yeah, no, I guess I wanted to expand on a couple of things. If you
Okay.
have a question for me, that's fine.
Well, go ahead and expand, because I don't want to get, otherwise we'll have to come back to it. Go ahead and expand.
I guess what I'm scared of, I agree with everything that David's saying. I have a variation on the theme on one thing, but one of the things I'm really concerned about is whether or not the system's going to take so long to get implemented. That's fine. But 90 days after it's signed into a law, it's effective, and all of the fuel that the police are ever going to have start right then.
Yes.
On screwing with people, and that's a fear I have, particularly since I have a current dispensing place that's probably in jeopardy unless we figure something out with it or whatever.
Well, let's hope. I mean, I have the same exact fear, Jamie, is that the cops are going to say, this is our last chance,
Yep.
This is our last chance to bust all these guys. Let's get them before this law is effective.
Line our pockets, put those
even
targets
after
on.
the law is effective, it's 360 days before you can apply. So they really have this last couple-year window, wink, wink, law enforcement. Go get your civil forfeiture money before we take away your ability to, And it's a real concern because I think these agencies are going to say that they've been looking at marijuana as easy, low-hanging fruit for a while.
Yes.
And realizing that they're going to lose that, they're going to try and pick as much of it as possible before it goes away. And that's a real worry of mine. And I just hope that, there's a flip side of that with these laws becoming, the public, the juries, are not going to recognize that these people aren't licensed yet. They're going to go, what are you talking about? There's a dispensary law in Michigan. And I hope that the juries will see through this bullshit when those cases do happen and say fuck you to the prosecutors that want to convict these people and say, no, dispensaries are legal in Michigan now,
Well, one would hope that the prosecutor doesn't take it up in the first place.
Hopefully,
well,
we get a new
that's,
prosecutor. That's one of the things we can vote on in November. All new prosecutors, all new sheriffs.
Jamie, do you think
it's so important, guys. It's so important. Everybody that's listening to the show, it is so important that we vote. This election and is a really important one in a lot of jurisdictions. Oakland County being the one that I'm affected by the most.
Me too.
I was in Monroe County today, and I had a legitimate medical marijuana patient who suffers from epilepsy, who was arguably over his plant count and, had some issues with his facility being locked and enclosed. He lived by himself, by the way. But anyways, a couple of small issues. I talked to the prosecutor, show her some medical records, and she dismissed it on her own.
Wow.
I didn't have to fight for 4 years. This is our first official hearing in the case, our first hearing, and she dismissed the case because she realized. And that's Monroe County. I am very pro the current prosecutor in Monroe County because they are
too, based on those words. Yeah.
But there's a lot of counties, Oakland County being one of them, where they are completely unreasonable. Yeah, I could, they don't care how legitimate somebody is. They are just looking for reason to continue to prosecute people and get convictions. And they're
going to do it.
We can get these people out, guys. And they're not undefeatable.
We did it with Mike Rolla, right?
Yeah. And Lapierre's about to have a new prosecutor. That's one that's going to happen for sure. Mike Rolla up in Gaylord is out. He's another one that is a true believer, Reefer Madness style.
Right. Mike Bouchard and Bill Schuette right down the line.
We got in Oakland County, we got Bouchard and Jessica Cooper, who are very powerful very politically connected and powerful people.
Yes.
But we have a choice. And we need to take this. I mean, for me, for the medical marijuana patients that live in Oakland County out there, you should take this like you can get a tyrant dictator out of power. And
that's exactly what Mike Bouchard is.
And Craig Carney is a good guy. His replacement would be great. So it would be a win-win.
And Mike Getz, who's running against Jessica Cooper for prosecutor, he's not openly pro-marijuana or anything like that. I can tell you he's going to be, in my belief, and I've been wrong in the past about these things, but my belief is he's going to be much more fair He's going to follow the law. He's not going to make a political issue out of this, and there's no question. I mean, he's still a prosecutor. He's been a lifetime prosecutor. He's an attorney general now. He's not soft on crime or anything like that, but there is no question he will be a million times better than what we're dealing with right now.
Jamie,
There's no question.
Do you think, Jamie, that we can go to the Lansing meeting tomorrow and lobby those guys walking into that committee room to do this bipartisan, supposedly reconciliation of the Senate bill into the House? And once that happens, this goes to the governor's desk, doesn't it? Don't you think we can go down there and lobby them to make some changes that will allow for places like yours some kind of protection in the meantime, talking about this 2-year window where there's just limbo going on?
No, way too late.
You think they're going to come with closed ears? We already got our votes in our pockets, and you're not changing our minds. That's the deal, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with that we can get into. A lot of people, such as myself and many others who were heavily involved in making some headway in the legislature, became just kind of fed up with the lack of ability to deal with these people and laid off dealing with it.
I mean, can I just give an example? Jamie was a part of this when the House passed the latest version of the bills that went to the Senate floor.
Mm-hmm.
They had a public hearing on them before when they were supposed to vote. However, instead of having the public hearing before the vote, they voted first, passed them, and then had the public hearing.
Now, what point is that? I mean, does that even count? Does that even qualify under the rules of this, procedural rules? How could you do that bass backwards and expect that it has any validity?
I honestly don't know. I was in Lansing that day. I was actually in court in Lansing, and I met up with a bunch of our friends afterwards, the activists that were participating in the public hearing. And it was like everybody got kicked in the stomach, because it's like, what was the point? Why did I even come to testify in front of them if they had already passed the bills?
Yeah.
It's really ridiculous, and it shows they don't give a shit about patients and caregivers.
Jamie, go ahead.
What's happened is, since a lot of people, such as David and myself and others, no longer engaging or giving testimony or being involved in the meetings, in the minds of this legislature, whether conveniently or for real, started viewing these lobbying industry groups who don't mind all this bullshit as representation of the community. And so this is like the deals have been made. The people have had input. They believe that they've worked with members of the community. There was a Free Press article that said most of the medical marijuana community cheered when this happened, and that's a bunch of bullshit. A handful of business people were excited about it,
right? Because they just got some kickback for their reach around with the legislature.
Yep, they're all excited. They're probably going to get one of these places. This whole thing is corrupt.
It stinks. It's rotten
from
the core.
There's no chance of changing anything or doing anything that's sensible at this stage in the game.
All right, so at the end of the day, what does this all mean? Because there's still something else we got to talk about, and that's this Am I Legalized challenge going on also tomorrow at 600 Court.
That is true. I want to throw in some controversy, though, and just offer up a slightly different perspective on a couple things that were said. I know that there are some good things in this bill. The 4210 does at least recognize, the infused products and the extractions and all that kind of stuff. But the urgency for that isn't as great anymore as it used to. And unless that bill could pass as a standalone, it's not worth it in the midst of all this other crap. So we can point to it and say, yeah, that's good or whatever, but to me, it's not that big of a deal. And I know that people talk about how in some cases this is going to provide more access for people in some areas. I don't buy that. I don't see that as being a big deal. And if so, it's so
it is a big deal. I disagree with that, Jamie.
That it's not worth all the rest of the bullshit either. So
I
we can look for ways of hope, man, but I don't even buy any of that bullshit, really. I mean, that's just not to be like a dick or anything, but that's just how bad I feel about these bills.
No, I mean, I understand your position, Jamie, but I can tell you personally, I've received calls. I'm out there on, my website is out there, and I get a lot of calls from older people that call me up and they say, all right, so I have cancer. My doctor wrote me the certification. Now what do I do? And I've got to tell them to drive really far to go to a dispensary.
Right.
You know, like that's the best advice that I can give them.
You when they
is,
figured out what to do. I mean, that's my point. Most people do that. They're not just waiting around for something to happen.
Yeah, but it's still for those people. If you're suffering from cancer, okay, and you've got to drive to Ypsilanti, like let's say you live, north a bit, and or in the thumb or something like that. These people have to drive for hours. These sick people to be able to get their medicine. I think it's really important that people have easy access to their medicine and have access, in the caregiver system in some areas, the failure of it is that the ability to connect good caregivers to the patients who need them. And there are some sites set up for it and stuff, but for a lot of people that have no experience, don't know where to go, it became very difficult for them, and that's why having dispensaries was so important. Having a dispensary system is really, really important. This is just a really shit way to do it. Right. It's kind of like having food is really important. We want to be able to feed all Americans, but GMO Monsanto is a really shitty way to do it. That's kind of what I compare it to. It's like, would you rather have no food at all or GMO food? It's like, I don't know. They're both, one's poison and one's starvation.
What to do than they are, and driving all over the place, and they are waiting around for this system to jump in and help them out.
It's your opinion, isn't it, Jamie, that we're better off with the system we got than the one that they're about to shove down our throats?
Yes. We're better off trying to deal with local governments and fighting stuff in court than we are dealing with this system coming in.
Yeah. And my position is they're both shit. They're both bad. I don't know which one we're better off with. They're both crap.
Right this moment instead of this.
All right. So anything else to say about this?
No, I'm done.
All right, David.
No, I'm done.
All right, so you can find out how to get a hold of David at rudoylaw.com, yes?
Yep.
If you got questions or you got wrapped up in something or the police end up coming and busting your local grow, if you're just growing for yourself as a patient or if you're a caregiver and they got you wrapped up into their net, David is the guy to call. I'll give him the number, David.
248-935-9074. And you can call anytime, 24/7.
Awesome. Now, I got to ask you guys about this thing going on in federal court. I know that Jamie's a little probably more connected to this than David is, but there is a challenge happening in federal court about the MI legalized loss in state court about getting this issue on the ballot. Who wants to go with that?
Yep. Sure, I'll take it real quick. So essentially the basis of the lawsuit, to kind of put it in really simple terms, is that people's First Amendment right to, when they sign that petition, that is speech. When you sign a petition, that is speech. And we have freedom of speech. And the way the system has been enforced is that somebody who signed the petition back in, let's say, July of 2015, it is illegal and it's actually a crime to sign a petition twice. And so they had no opportunity to sign a second time within the 6-month window. And their vote, their speech, is not being heard by this government because of the way they set up this system and this 180-day window, except for you can't sign it twice. So the brave people who decided to be named in this lawsuit stepped up and said, hey, you didn't count my signature, and you didn't provide there was no way for the signature to be counted because these clerks won't do it. They're not mandated to do this whole affidavit process, this policy, and so there was really no way for their speech to be heard, and therefore this whole system, this whole petitioning policy was a violation of their freedom of speech. Do you think I put it pretty well, Jamie?
Undue burden. You have to find a unicorn before you can realize your constitutional rights. They give you an undue burden.
Exactly.
So what you're saying is that the unicorn theory, it doesn't exist, and so because it doesn't exist, our constitutional rights are being violated if we signed that petition. And it's older than 180 days.
Yep.
Right.
All right. What are the chances of this getting some legs in federal district court in Flint?
We have a good judge, but things are really late in the game. Not everybody grasps this issue that quickly, so we can't really expect a lot. But we do have a great argument, and we have Tom Levine going up for us, and we have a judge that seems to be civil rights.
Also, Michael Comorn on the suit. Shout out.
Comorn is on the
Michael
suit,
Comorn
although
on
he's
the
not going to be
lawsuit as
arguing.
well.
That's all tomorrow, I don't think.
Yeah.
Jeff Frazier from Comorn Law helped out quite a bit, and I think Tom's going to do all the arguing tomorrow. He understands this stuff really well. He's passionate about it. The arguments are on our side. We have a good judge. There's barely enough time. I'd like to think there's like a sliver of hope here, but to expect something under these circumstances is probably asking a lot. But we'll see. I'll be there.
No.
I'm looking forward to it.
I would like to be there, but my question is, where am I best held? Am I best going to the court in Flint, or am I best going to protest and get in front of TV cameras and make our statement in front of public on the news tomorrow downtown in Lansing? Which place should I be? Because they're happening at almost the same time.
Yeah.
I would recommend going to Lansing. I would recommend going to Lansing. The public's appearance in the federal court is not going to have a big effect on Article 3 judges.
Right.
These judges in federal court don't give a shit about public sentiment because they don't have to. They are not elected. They are appointed by presidents, and they serve lifetime tenure.
Wow.
So they don't really care. Now, they care about the legal arguments, but being there, like, as far as, like, the public being there and what it might have some small effect. I'm not saying it won't have any effect.
That doesn't matter.
But they don't have to care.
We're there for supporting an issue that we care about. It's
right.
not like to try to sway the judge whatsoever, but
I think it'll be fascinating to listen to those arguments and what the outcome eventually the court comes up with.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you're choosing between the two, the legislature is elected.
Sorry, sometimes it's hard. You guys end up talking over each other because it's hard to hear each other, but go ahead, Jamie.
I was just going to bring up the point, I don't think it's been brought up yet, that when we're talking about corruption in state government, all three branches, I don't think there's any coincidence that the ability to be involved in getting on the ballot this year was stolen from us, and then the next day the bullshit fucking bills go through.
Yeah, that tells a story all by itself, doesn't it, really?
It's very suspicious timing, let's say that. It's very, very suspicious timing, almost like they knew, I'm not calling out the Michigan Supreme Court. I don't know. We don't know, but it's
somebody
just
in Bernstein's office now look at this and just go, oh, my God, these guys are right. Let's do something about this. It's hard to wrap my head around that one, the Supreme Court. But we know now.
The Supreme Court's been Supreme Court's been so odd. This current panel of our Supreme Court, this current session, it's like they come up with some cases where I think, oh, this is a pretty good court. This opinion seems really well reasoned, and I might not agree with everything, but it's pretty good. And then they come out with some other decisions that just baffle my mind, where it's like, are these the same judges?
Right.
It's really hard for me to explain what's been going on.
Again, I think there's an unseen reach around happening here. Something's going on that we can't see.
Well,
it's possible.
The theory is that big oil and gas and the Chamber of Commerce do happen to have some influence even in that branch of government.
Well, and really this, because this goes beyond the issue about just our ballot petition, this reaches wider and deeper into the citizens' ability to get legislative stuff done when the legislature won't do it on their behalf as representatives.
Right.
That's right. This is about democracy in Michigan. It's a really big deal, and basically what they've said is if you're a big corporation with lots of money and lots of resources, you can still get voter initiatives on the ballot. But if you're a grassroots initiative like Am I Legalized, it's going to be almost impossible. it's going to be really hard. And that's not to say that I'm giving up that we're not going to do this the next time, because I'm not, but they're making the barrier as high as possible. Whereas a company, some company that wants to enact some sort of voter initiative, if they've got $5 million in the bank starting off, it's not going to be that hard for them to get the signatures in 180 days, because they can pay petitioners $5 a signature, and they can motivate people to get out there and get these signatures, where that just wasn't an option. At MI Legalized, we raised a lot of money, but in a grassroots manner, and it took a lot of time. And they're making the barrier as high as they possibly can, so that the rich and powerful can enact change, and the rest of us can go fuck ourselves.
Right. No, you're absolutely right, David. And I think it's just more of the corporate worm working its way into wresting control of the government away from the people and writing everything in favor of them. This is really not a constitution that's written by the people for the people. This is of the corporations by the companies.
Corporatocracy.
That's what it is.
We know it's here, and there's only one thing we can do to fight it, and that's first off, get up and vote out every representative you can that you think is on the corporate take, because we know they are. That whole bill of limiting it to a hard 180 days. Everybody who voted for that, as far as I'm concerned, can get the fuck out of office.
Right.
Because what that bill was designed to do is take power away from the people. Why are you voting for someone that's trying to take your political power away from you? And we need to have a strong reaction to those bills.
A lot of constituents went to Senator Roberts, who introduced the bill, and said, would you please introduce something that limits our ability to participate in the democratic process? This is becoming a real serious issue for us.
Thank you for the tongue-in-cheek from Jamie Lowell. I know there's a gay joke. We're missing a gay joke. We've been talking for an hour, no gay jokes. I'm surprised.
No. Because the ass fucking that we're getting is not very funny.
Yeah, it's really not. It's not funny when it's happening to you, is it, Jamie?
No. All right, guys. I got to get off to dinner, guys. It was very good talking with you, and have a wonderful night.
Thanks again, David Rudoy, attorney at law, out there fighting for the people. Keep up the good fight. You're doing an excellent job, David, and I'm working on some writing for you, so get ready for some writing. It's coming your way, brother.
Awesome.
Man.
Thanks, Steve.
Hey, David.
Jamie, talk to you soon.
All right. You're taking off too, Jamie? Thanks, David.
I'm not necessarily taking off. I was just telling David I might see him tomorrow night. It might be part of a small meeting just to kind of discuss these bills more in depth, see what's going on, and
there's a lot of meat to chew on here. There's a lot to chew on at the table when you get to that discussion, isn't there, Jamie?
Yeah. The what I was about ready to say though is that this is all part of the Bill 776. On one hand, it's part of a trend to do exactly what we were discussing, which is for them to retain power and control and to make it harder for citizens to do anything about it. But one thing that is interesting that could be coming up based on what we were just discussing, the fracking ban people are still collecting signatures. They have over 200,000 signatures. The Public Act 142 or Senate Bill 776 is only a new initiative. They didn't amend the Constitution. There is still a fight there that could be had, and I think at some point we should pitch in and help these people get the rest of their signatures. And I will probably do that and see if MI Legalized wants to participate in that, because we could set up another beautiful fight in the courts.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. I think it's a great strategy. Look, united we stand, divided we fall, and we had to unite as a patient caregiver community that was really left with no choice but to participate in this system that we tried to create for ourselves, because again, it wasn't going to be created for us by our representatives. So now that they've sliced and diced that into whatever pocket bread they could manage to mull out of it, we're left back with the same choice: change the law or suffer the sword.
Yeah, and when people say change the law, you would like for there to be a reasonable avenue to go do it. But they've been systematically chipping away at that, so you can't even rely on your ability to go do that if you're fired up enough and can get enough resources and people together to go do it.
Do you think if we just went back in time and we erased the Medical Marijuana Act from the history of the past, and just and went forward from now, forward until now from then, without the Medical Marijuana Act ever being brought up amongst somebody's breath, never being the words spoken. It never happened. Do you think right now that the legislature would be taking the actions that they're taking at this moment?
No, they wouldn't even. They wouldn't even be passing a medical marijuana act. This particular legislature.
So haven't we then, if you're taking that position, wouldn't you also then be by default taking the position that we basically carved out something for corporate America to take over?
Yeah, but that's always the risk. I mean, that's corruption and that's power and control, and we wouldn't move anywhere. We'd remain vulnerable on the side of like just being underground the entire time if we didn't make these moves. I mean, that's always a quandary. Some people are blaming me actually for these bills that just passed because it was my organization that started this.
Right.
So many years ago,
right.
But with language that made sense, that
right.
was based on what was working already in this state. I don't take responsibility for this bullshit version of the bills.
No, that albatross hangs clearly around the neck of Representative Mike Calton, doesn't it?
In part, it does. Yeah.
I mean, he was the one that gutted the language of the bill that we asked him to write, and then wrote in its place the favor of the other people who gave him a bigger paycheck, didn't it? Isn't that what happened?
Of course. He's a politician. He saw an issue he could take and ride for years and keep on getting money given to him over it. He shed some people.
From both sides.
New people on.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Well, he lied with a forked tongue, didn't he? Didn't he stand up there in front of some of these meetings that we came to, where we had speakers and people talking, the Cannabis Cup and other venues out at the THC Expo and other places where, people come and do this public speaking. Didn't Mike Calton go out there to those places and say, I'm on your side, I'm going to get this done, I'm going to back patients and caregivers, and didn't he just turn around and stab them right in the back?
Yeah, he's a politician. I gave up dealing with him. I gave up dealing with the legislature a while ago because of the level of corruption and all the blatant lies right directly to my face, as if it was no big deal. It's just part of the world there. And I think these lobbying groups and these people are all involved in this process, all got caught up in it and just wanted to get something done. And there's very little regard for the unintended consequences, what kind of foundation this sets up now. And all types of things are at issue. I mean, I'm all for incrementalism, but not when it heads in the direction of this kind of bad policy. I would rather keep status quo, which is not great, and work with it than go in this direction. But this might be the new reality. So while I'm sitting here bitching about it and everything, it's something that might have to be checked in as the way things are.
Some people I've talked to in the caregiver community are, I believe, under the delusional impression that they can, if they muster through it, if they show that they're great caregivers and they can rise above the rest, and that somehow without any criminal record and by putting together some taking out extra mortgages and calling in favors from friends and bundling together every bit of cash you can get and put it all on the line there and somehow magically get a license from the state of Michigan to be one of these 500, 1,000, or 1,500 plant grows that they're setting up in these bills, because I think this is just coming down the track like a steam train at full speed. They think that this is going to happen. Do you think that this is the case, or is that a delusional thought? I think it's a delusional thought. I think that the legislature has the point of view, and the people that the governor's going to appoint are going to have the point of view that caregivers are nothing more than criminals. They're nothing more than criminals. They're the criminal element, and we ought not have them involved in business where patients need medicine.
Yeah. They've been gunning for home grows from the beginning. There is no question about that. There are a lot of caregivers that think that everything is cool because this doesn't specifically address them at the moment. And, in all fairness, this is difficult unless have some historical perspective or really understand the potential for this corruption to kind of set in a little bit. It's hard to understand why this is a big deal to some people. And I get that. And, I'll say what I think about this stuff repeatedly and try to explain that to people. And if it means something to somebody, good. If I'm wrong and this turns out to be a great program, that's even better. I would love to. alleviate my concerns here. But I'm not there. That's for sure. Not right now.
Do you see a place in time in the future? Can you carve out in your imagination a place where we're at a happy place once these bills settle in and everybody gets changed over and law enforcement stops lining their pockets and targeting people who are sick and already burdened with debilitating conditions?
They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. We're going to see more of that because now when they come across a garden of a caregiver who has, a couple patients and a few plants, they are suspects now. Like, what do you need all that for? And is that, that kind of stuff. I mean, I think more of that happens with the passing of these laws than ever before. The idea of really separating the caregivers from the commerce, I think police will feel empowered to do that.
Don't you think maybe the police had some lobbying going on here saying, go ahead and write these bills so that we can get rid of all of these guys that are hiding under the skirt of the law as criminals?
Yeah, and I'm not positive, but I almost think that this sheriff's push to get the governor to veto might be a little bit of a sham or a ruse a little bit the more I think about it.
I think it is.
Although I certainly do. It could be, although I certainly know that Sheriff Bouchard does not support anything, moving forward that makes sense. So it also wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I have taken the temperature of many political writers, news people in this state, and their temperature says the governor's going to sign this. They all agree unanimously that the governor's going to sign this. So I think your suspicion that the Mike Bouchard marched to the governor's desk in defiance of these bills, urging him to not sign them, letting them lay in limbo and not get passed into law, I think that is a ruse. Because if the governor has already made clear, made it clearly known through channels that write news that he intends on signing this if the legislature passes it, that there would be no point for the Bouchard march because the decision has already been made.
Right.
So why not?
That's probably true.
Why not toss a little?
It's also true that Bouchard could be trying to stop it, but he just doesn't have enough pull right now. I mean, that could also be one of the ways it's been.
Well, when the lava has already slid down one side of the island, it's awfully hard to push it back up over the other curb.
Yeah.
It just, at some point, political weight has its gravity.
Yeah, I'm still grieving a little bit over this.
I'm clearly grieving over it. I mean, I'm thinking.
Well, and I always say too that and maybe I slipped it in here a couple times tonight, that the first red flag in all of this is that it was passed by this particular legislative body.
Exactly.
They don't do anything that makes sense. I mean, you think they really give a fuck about caregivers and patients and what's best for everybody? I mean, they didn't do it for that. The language would be different. They would have a better understanding of what's going on. They would be matching up the policy with the nature of cannabis and how things work. Why not look at what's been functioning fine for 7 years instead of creating this whole new bunch of bullshit that really doesn't make that much sense?
Look, even at the Walsh hearings, remember the Walsh bills when those were passed? Even at because I've gone to all these just like you have. Well, not every single one, but every single one that I've gone to where I've listened to the public speak, where they've actually made time, carved out some time, limited time, albeit, for the public to speak back on what they're about to try and consider. They have been rude and disrespectful to the people in the medical marijuana community who have trudged in wheelchairs and canes and walkers and in great pain many times to sit there and testify about how debilitatingly sick they are and what a life-saving impact this medicine has on their lives. And we're absolutely pretty much dismissed in whole. I mean, they didn't give. There were no fucks given, zero fucks given by the legislature hearing this. Go ahead.
Yeah, they could have been treated well during the time of testimony, and there could have been like some gesture by the lawmakers or people sitting on the panel and the committee saying, "Oh my gosh, that's so bad," and all that kind of crap. But when it came down to it, they certainly weren't listened to, and their message certainly was not internalized by these people. Money speaks.
I saw
There's
people.
Big money influence in there, and that's it.
I saw members of these committees more reading over notes and looking through their cell phone and texting on Facebook than were listening to the people testify.
Yeah, just going through the motions, and they're going to do their thing. When somebody says jump, they're going to ask how high, and it'll get done. And
Are we done with this yet? Has everybody had a chance to say? Well, if you didn't, there's postcards over there. You can write your comments on the postcards and submit them.
They'll even read them sometimes. They'll give you the benefit of it being put on public record, whatever, or go through the motion.
Right. Go ahead and go over there and do that because this tea party's over, and we've already made up our minds before you guys ever came here. So bully for you for coming in and champion the cause. Fight the man.
Yep.
All right, so I guess we've covered those bases pretty well tonight, Jamie. Do you think? This has been a question I've been wanting to ask through the whole interview, but never had a chance to throw it in, so I'll do it now.
It's about 5 inches wide and about 9.5 inches long.
Yeah,
like a big beer can.
You see, now I can't use it in the promo because you hit a beep and it cuts you out. Oh, you got to say it again. I didn't hear what you said, Jamie.
No, go ahead. What's your question?
So I'm trying to figure out this. Do you think when we go into when this train comes down the track, do you think that the quality of medicine that's available now, the varieties of medicine that's available now, the types of medicine that are available now are going to be the same?
No, but fortunately, I can see how it doesn't necessarily have to be as bad as it would have been if caregivers were eliminated and the large gardens started earlier. But it's still not going to be good. Yeah, it's not going to be the same. I mean, the thousands of small gardens that could be allowed to bring product to commerce would certainly be the basis of a way more diverse inventory for these stores, and that would be better for everybody.
I'm just going to say that if you like your skunk...
There'll be some good stuff, I guess, but no, it won't be the same.
If you like your blue cheese skunk, I just don't think that you're going to find it at the dispensary that you're going to go to in the dispensary of the future, in the dispensary of 2019. Isn't that when it's supposed to happen? Sometime around then? So you get 2016, 17, 18. It'd be beginning of 2019. So in the year 20...
It shouldn't really take that long for the first dispensary to happen. I wouldn't think.
Well, I mean, we got a year before they can even apply for a license, and then it's going to be some application process, and then there's going to be some...
It could be halfway through 2018, leading up to 2019. Okay, I can buy that.
So,
okay, you're right.
So you're looking at 2019, maybe January of 2019 when this starts coming online. I don't think you're going to be able to go there and find your blue cheese skunk, or I don't think you're going to be available to even buy anywhere your Gorilla Glue. And if you could find something that was similar, you would find it under a different name.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe a brand.
None of this really makes sense. It's not practical. It doesn't fit what's already been going on, and it doesn't fit the nature of cannabis. So there's a myriad of issues that stem from that, and this is one of them.
Well, you mentioned titration earlier as a form of managing dosage and controlling issues related to medibles, because some people don't know how to do it.
Figuring out for yourself what you should be using, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So if part of that process takes a while, doesn't it? I mean, to really dial which kind of medicine in that you need to work with somebody who's experienced and understands sativa and understands indica, understands different strains and their components and how they may lend to efficacy for your condition, specific as it may be. Is that correct?
Yeah, and everybody's different. Some people aren't that sensitive where you're really getting the exact same strain every single time, but some people are.
I'm just saying if you're
working with people, it's all part of the process of dealing with patients.
My point is that it takes a while for a new patient. You've just been diagnosed with a condition, or your condition has led you to debilitating situation where you've got no other option but to look for cannabis as an answer. And so from that time going forward, it takes a while. Takes some maybe up months up to a year, maybe a little bit longer, depending on your availability to go out and sample the field, so to speak, to dial yourself in, to find which works for you, and to stick with that. Because
that's one of the beauties of the way dispensaries work right now, though, is somebody like that comes into a Third Coast or a good facility. And we can discuss the condition and what's going on and what. And sometimes people have tried cannabis before and they've got some idea of what has worked and what hasn't. But regardless, we start working with the person, and it is a matter of trying the different forms out, the different strains, the different delivery systems, and all that kind of stuff. But based on what people talk about and their condition and stuff, we can start taking some stabs at some things that are commonly beneficial for those things, and start with that. And then so sometimes it might happen sooner for somebody to figure out what might be a good approach, and some people might take several months to get there if they're willing to keep on sticking it out. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
So if it takes some time and then you end up with this new system come 2019, and whatever plays out, however it plays out, because we could sit here and borrow from the future all day long and be wrong on every point, because who knows where it's going to turn and how it's going to work out. Maybe we're all wrong. Maybe this changes over, and maybe there's an edict from the legislature down the pike through private channels to tell the police, look, you're done here. There's nothing to see here. Go home.
All their hearts grew 3 times that day, and everything changed. Yep. Maybe that happened.
Maybe we're all wrong, and this is all just going to be an easy slide, and they'll be nice to caregivers now. Who knows?
Everybody likes pot now, and the police aren't interested in enforcing anything anymore. Everything's okay. That'd be great.
Maybe that happens, but you walk into the dispensary of the future in 2019, and you go to find the strain that you've titrated over time, that you've dialed in on, and now you don't even know where to begin to look because all the names are different. All the strains and varieties are different. Maybe the thing that worked for you isn't even available by law. I mean, there's a lot of...
some of the new testing places do a much better job of getting more information of the plant, and it really should become part of the market where patients, particularly the kind that we're talking about, who have found a few specific things that really work, they'd have a much easier time, no matter what the name of the cannabis is or how much THC or whatever is in it, if they understand some of those other elements that have really been beneficial to their condition. And so if somebody can snapshot through testing what's inside of the plant and not worry so much about what it's called or how strong it's supposed to be or something like that, then they can home in faster on what might be a good substitute if they were used to something that's no longer available anymore.
Well, assuming that these things even carry over, like maybe this is information that's available in the current system, but may not be widely available in the newly created system. Maybe those genetics and some of that information that we find so useful in our current system won't be adopted or accepted. Maybe you walk in and you find the thing that you need for nausea is nauseatum number 1, nauseatum number 2, and nauseatum number 3. Those are the ones we got for nausea, and those are the only ones we're going to sell you for that condition. That's what I'm worried about.
Well, that would be uncool.
Well, I think it would be antithetical to making any profit in this industry. So I think maybe it would be a further evidence of how they don't understand the nature of cannabis. And that's my overall argument in the first place against this whole system, because you're giving them control of what people know about because they've researched it, they've done their homework, they've actually conducted their own experiments to find the answers to questions on, and worked with networking and community forums on Facebook and other places on the internet, and called each other and networked through friends and other people they've run into at places like in Genesee County, they have up there the Genesee County Compassion Club. It's a model that I haven't seen really repeated many places across the state up until maybe recently, where you could go and network with other people. You find this at other cannabis clubs across the state, and you can get some information at dispensaries. They've been very helpful. Some of these people have been very forthright in becoming good bud tenders and learning their craft. All of that knowledge is thrown out the window when this baby goes out there with the bathwater, I think. I don't think there's anything requiring these new system people.
Well, some people will be needed with that kind of expertise, but this limits participation greatly, and it's such a tragedy because these types of opportunities don't come along too often, and the type of new emerging industry and that could unfold here in its own unique way and then not have to be compared to alcohol or have a restrictive alcohol-style system as they're going in the direction of now. So many people could benefit and participate, and we have like a scenario where It's not limited to a few people who are already rich, and others find their health out of it, or they find a living out of it, or they find extra income out of it, or whatever it is, or they find some therapy out of it. Whatever it is, to cut that off and not allow it to do its thing and to benefit everybody and to be a lot more accessible to the masses is just it's a tragedy.
Well, what I'm suggesting is that as we go forward, from now going forward, that between now and the time we run into that first dispensary in 2019, because that would be the brand new road, I think we're going to have this kind of, whatever road we're on right now. And then I think the road's going to get very bumpy for the next couple of years. And then I think when we travel to the transition to the new road, maybe the new road is built really well, but the thing is that the transition between the old road, the bumpy road, and the new road is going to be extremely shaky. It's going to be not pleasant, because when you get to the new road, you're going to have to titrate all over again. You might
no question, because the law. Yeah, there's no question about that. Things are going to be compromised, and maybe as David suggested and Brad Forrester suggests. A few people who didn't otherwise have access will now have access. Although, again, I don't think that's a big thing, and I don't think that warrants all the damage.
Well, I don't even think that.
Those people make phone calls. They go to grocery stores. I know that there might be some people kind of hanging out waiting for something to happen like this, but I can't believe it's a real thing. Like, it's an issue. That's a major problem in the state. I speak to lots of people all over the state, and people figure it out.
I don't even think that it's going to be an accurate depiction of what the future of dispensaries in this state is going to even look like, because I think you're going to wait. Let me finish making my point. I think every place that you see in northern Michigan, except for perhaps Traverse City, perhaps Gaylord, is going to be not in our backyard. It's going to be the NIMBY theory. You're not going to put up dispensaries here. So I think, if you happen to live in Manistee, or if you happen to live in the UP somewhere, or if you happen to live in the outskirts that's not close to Gaylord or Traverse City, even if you live in, a nearby city, Kalkaska or some other place, that you're still going to have to drive a considerable distance to find your cannabis. And then even when you get there, you're not going to get what you got before.
Sure. But we're talking about halfway through 2018, leading up to 2019, before something actually gets moving, a system is in place. By 2018, which is the next general election, it could be legalized, but if not, there will be another initiative on that ballot.
You're right.
That'll throw a wrench into all this stuff.
I didn't even think about that. The whole legalized thing could rear its ugly head again against the legislature in 2018 before 2019 even comes along.
It could. We might miss this year, but still win the case and be put on the 2018 ballot. That is a possibility. If not, there are several groups who have access to good resources who are talking about doing their own initiative.
Or perhaps, that's a great suggestion there, or perhaps you do as we suggested and band together with other people with like minds when it comes to doing legislation here through citizen petition drives, and buddy up with them and pool our resources and get it done anyways. Maybe we buddy up with the people that are do the fracking and get some of their money and help us get our stuff passed. Maybe they carry our new petition that are all fresh signatures while they're trying to finish up getting the ones that they need. I think there are pathways there.
Well, see, there's many different things that can happen. If we're not going to get on the ballot in 2016, the next best case scenario is to be on the ballot for 2018 without having to petition again.
Well, I'm saying it would be awfully good to petition again just as a backup.
Well, you know what, man? I just went through this process. I can tell you that until laws get clarified, and in our minds we know what's going on, just so people know, the first time that there was ever a 180-day limit to collect signatures is when Governor Schneider signed it into law in June this year. So this idea that we just didn't do it in 180 days, so that's it. That's a mischaracterization of what's going on.
Well, I think that's going to play. I think that argument's going to play itself out in federal court starting tomorrow.
We have a really good argument. We have a judge who is going to be a lot more open than any of the state judges to this. She has a civil rights background. She gave us a hearing right off the bat. We never even got a hearing from any of the 3 different courts that we ran our case through. no explanation, really, no reasoning, no addressing of the pertinent arguments that were making by either the state or the courts. I mean, we were shut out. It was corruption.
It is corruption, and I see it on a daily basis in this state, and I've seen it since the early 80s, actually. I mean, I've watched this throughout time get worse and worse and worse. There was a day where I saw community policing that I respected police. And it was up until the Medical Marijuana Act took place that I had a great deal of friends and colleagues in the police department who respected me. The moment I became a patient, they all turned their backs on me and said that should have never happened. They should never have passed that law.
Jeff Frazier is one of the guys that, with Camoran Law, who was helping on our federal case tomorrow, or Dakota's and Sean's federal case tomorrow. This isn't really MI legalized. This is a couple of people who signed the petition who are suing. And Cannabis Council and Camoran Law are taking the respective cases. Jeff Frazier was down in Texas, and long story short, he worked with ACLU down there probably 15 years ago to disband multi-jurisdictional task force, to get a bunch of people out of jail, to get their stuff back when they were really abusing the system, and it was against black people primarily. 1 out of every 3 black people in this little town of Tulia, Texas, were being arrested and their items of value taken and family devastated and all that kind of stuff, and really abusive. And he was able to do that. And he came up to Michigan, and he said something akin to, "I thought the people in Tulia, Texas had it bad until I met medical marijuana patients in Michigan."
Do you think that this might also change the future that we seek to foretell? Hillary Clinton gets elected into office and carries forth the Democratic platform, which at this point has been modified by the Sanders campaign to include the rescheduling of marijuana. Listen to this. This was on a radio show earlier.
That we have to address. Excuse me. Sorry.
It's okay.
Allergy
pneumonia.
That's a killer.
Right? How do you guys do it?
Listen, Jamie, listen. You're missing it. Hang on a second. You gotta listen to the whole piece. Hang on. Hold on.
I'm listening, man.
Listen, you coughing like you got some medicinal.
Yeah, I need some.
She's over there coughing about that pneumonia, and then the guy says, it sounds like you need that medicinal, and she says, you just did that medicinal. She says, I need some. I think that's hilarious.
Well, she is. She's a moderate progressive. I mean, I'm not a big fan of hers, but she's establishment. She's status quo, and we're not going. I don't think we see a dramatic change from the federal government in terms of policy.
No, but I think a dramatic change is rescheduling to Schedule 2. I think that is a dramatic change. It opens up all kinds of windows and doors that didn't exist under Schedule 1, and it also opens the door for this dragon they've got set aside for the, what is it, the Senate Bill 660?
Yeah, but for Senate Bill 660 isn't going to be a very competitive, I don't think, system here in Michigan.
It mirrors the the Medical Marijuana Act in almost every way.
I disagree with that. It doesn't really work like that at all.
Well, it still works with a patient registry. It's still got to be registered with the state. It costs you $100 to get the registry card. If you can't get your marijuana from those places unless you get that particular registry card, and you can't participate in the MMMA through that registry if you have this registry. Yep. I mean, it mirrors the other program. It just lets the other people grow it, and you got to get it from them.
It is a parallel program, but it does not mirror the other program. That's the thing. It has some similar components, but it's a completely different thing.
I'll digress that it's a funhouse mirror at best, if we're going to use that analogy.
Yeah, it's a parallel program that's not very good. I mean, and now with this stuff coming in from the legislature, I doubt it really ever gets up and running, even with the schedule to Schedule 2. And Schedule 2 won't make that much difference in our lives, really, as long as the Department of Justice and their policy, until there's a real change in federal law, is what's more important than where the scheduling is. And so as long as there's not a new attorney general in there that is interested in incorporating cannabis in as a crime again and making a big deal about it, we'll be okay. If a Trump presidency comes along and somebody like Chris Christie gets in there, something like that could happen.
So
I'm not a fan of anybody really, but I'm less scared of a Hillary presidency over this issue than I am a Trump presidency over this issue.
Oh, no, Trump is lying. He's doing that fork tongue thing too. He's telling one side one thing and the other side another thing.
It doesn't matter. See what he's done. He's got Pence and he's got Christie hanging around.
Right.
That's all you need to know.
One's going to eat the other one? That's what I think would happen if you put those two guys in a room. One eats the other. That's what I say.
Man, just
get in my belly.
I'm scared by the Trump. I understand people's hatred for Hillary. I mean, the establishment is not cool. We all got excited about Bernie for a little while. I kind of liked a lot of the stuff that Rand Paul was saying on the Republican side, more of a libertarian view. I'm pretty narrow in my issue, so I'm talking about where these people are standing, mainly on cannabis and, the future there with possible reform and how it affects states and things like that.
All right.
So I'm not a big fan of our choices, but I mean, one scares me to death and one doesn't. So that's probably an unfortunate way to choose somebody, but that's where I am.
It is what we're left with. However, you got to understand that the Democratic Party platform did not include the concession of putting marijuana to Schedule 2 until Bernie Sanders dug his heels in.
Okay, I'm not, but again, that's good, and we can research and stuff like that. But what matters is how the Department of Justice is going to treat us, and it's going to stay more stable under Hillary than it will under Trump. Don't you think that Hillary's seen the smoke signals coming from the cannabis community about this? Don't you think that she's going to have to do them a favor at some point down the line if she intends to get reelected? If she's not going to be called a liar? She will move forward. It'll just be slow. That's my opinion of how she's going to deal with this issue. We will get some movement, but we're not going to get like strides. So there'll be baby steps in heels, is what you're saying. She's a moderate progressive. She'll keep some stuff in place and then kind of roll with moving it forward a little bit. That's my assessment. Whether or not that means anything, I don't know. But I feel more comfortable with that potential scenario than I do with any other possibility. Do you think it would be smart for Black Lives Matter to make sure that Hillary has an open door once she's elected into office, if that happens, to speak towards this issue further in the future? Hey, part of the reason that they've made this illegal in the first place was to beat up on people of color and people who are poor. And so that includes part of our community. In fact, it includes a great deal of our community, and we want to stick up for them. What do you have to say, Hillary? Don't you think it would be smart for Black Lives Matter to open that door? Yeah, I do. And I think that those discussions should be had, and we'll hear them, and there'll probably be some openness and a lot of arenas to really discuss it. And there'll probably be committee hearings and all types of stuff bringing up the issues. What actually gets changed or moved forward quickly as a result of that remains to be seen. But the discussion will take place, and they should be involved in that. And, there's a root in the failed war on drugs that relates to all of this, and the police getting out of control and, feeling it's okay to shoot people under weird circumstances and that type of stuff. We should discuss solving the issue by logically looking at the root of the problem and doing that. But then again, this is politics, and there's a lot of money around, and what actually gets done and when. Oh, my gosh. By the way, I just got news that Representative Peter Patalia has died in a motorcycle crash, and he's from up northeastern Michigan. Wow. He was actually on the hemp bill that passed a few years ago that Steve Sharp helped out a lot with. Right. That's terrible news, Jamie. It is. I've spoken with him a few times. A lot of people I know him. I have family in that area where he represents. Came across my phone when we were talking here. Northern Michigan State Representative Peter Patalia dies in a motorcycle crash. Wow. That's terrible news. I hate to hear stuff like that on live radio, but that's what we do. So that guy admitted to me a few years ago about how the legislature was gunning for the caregiver system. Just since we are talking about him, I was on the phone with him. He wanted to be involved in introducing a bill of some kind that had to do with marijuana because he knew it was a popular issue. He's a politician trying to figure out what to grasp onto. He was friends with Carlton. We had Colton come up to his area one time. He couldn't make it over, but he wanted to be involved. And so I was simply talking to him, and he told me just as a matter of fact that they want to get rid of the caregiver system. So, I mean, I was thinking to myself, do you realize who you're talking to? But it's not like that's much of a secret. I mean, we see it all the time. It's been written. It's been tried in certain languages as this process has gone on. The cronies of these people, the MRC, their original proposal had everything taken out. So it wasn't like it a surprise, but I did have that conversation with him since I'm reflecting on just hearing about his death.
What about the MCDA? What about the MCDA? Didn't they have, the Michigan Cannabis Development Association? Yeah, MCDA.
Yeah. What about them?
I mean, didn't they have some input and some influence on this too? Weren't they part crafters of this legislation?
Well, they had lobbyists. They had GCSI, which is a huge lobbying firm that wanted to make. They also are lobbyists for other interests that don't mind benefiting from this as well. And they are the ones who made up the bullshit about how these bills have to be all tier system, and we have to emulate alcohol, we have to do this and that, or it's not going to pass, or there's no way it's going to pass, and the police aren't going to let us do this, they're not going to allow us to do this and that, and all that kind of bullshit. We were close to much better, as we all know, in December of 2014, something that actually made sense almost passed. And then it was sabotaged by the Sheriff's Association and Bouchard and that kind of stuff. And that was not supposed to change very much into 2015. But it was that at that point when they didn't pass in 2014 that all these lobbyists and these new interests and everybody came in saying, "Oh, it's still alive, it's still open. So now we can get our shit in there."
Right.
And that's why there's 50 lobbyists hanging out at the end of it all when these finally pass as a piece of shit.
It's the whole reason that the seed-to-sale tracking bill happened, isn't it? Isn't it all lobbying there?
Yeah, that was never involved. I mean, that didn't really work well in Colorado. I mean, to take things that don't work from other states and not look to see what's been working in Michigan for 7 years, it just makes sense. It's obvious that, there's a strategy to do things in this restrictive way so the outcome benefits those who they choose to benefit.
I think the rules that will get promulgated by the board that oversees this, that's appointed by the governor. And by the way, most of the bill, if you look at the bill that addressed the biggest bill, 4209 change with Senate substitute J6. It's the Senate substitute for 4209 that is now getting reconciled in the House. Probably tomorrow, probably happen. I think they're going to vote this out in lightning speed, Jamie. I don't think there's going to be any consideration. I think that people are going to be marching and protesting and yelling at people, calling Colton a liar if they can find him, because that's what I did to him the last time I saw him. I just called him a bold-faced liar.
Even if there's changes, they'll get everything done quickly. There's no question about that. I mean, I think there's probably going to be a couple of tweaks, but it'll all be like smooth. There won't be any like hang-ups over it.
I think once the rules are promulgated by that committee, that board, I think they're going to be crazy and vast and complex. I think that they're going to make this as restrictive and difficult as possible, even given the scenario that they're putting these businessmen through the ringer in getting lots and lots of money for them on a non-refundable application fee.
Right. And what's if you see the makeup of the 17-member panel, I mean, it's really diverse. And it's all these considerations for county, police chief, sheriff association member, state police, all this kind of stuff. There's 17, remember. But when it comes to patients, caregivers, it's patient or caregiver. Patient and a caregiver.
Patient or. Either or. You get one choice.
But this group, I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to get together and do something shitty, or they're not going to be able to agree on anything. I mean, the whole system is stupid.
I think it's going to be dysfunctional, but my broader point was that the bill itself, most of the bill, the vast majority of the bill, speaks to the creation of the board and what it must consist of, and what they can't have or can't have connection to in their personal lives. Like it mentions their spouses in all these instances. All the spouses are brought into question. You can't have it, again, they outlaw any kind of convictions on drugs or felonies. It can't even have been something that happened distantly in the past. You cannot have any drug convictions. And even if they were expunged, it has to be exposed. They find out you're not exposed, they'll throw you off the board.
I know. So big, like So now you have this board.
Right.
Then, once it's finally impaneled, we get to find out what the real rules are. So
right.
So this is shitty now, and we don't even know what the rules are going to be.
Well, and we're assuming that they're going to draw any conclusions that are based on fact and not conjecture or again, special interest. Because if you got law enforcement people and everybody else and their brother up on that panel, they're just going to be trying to craft rules that are going to benefit the other side, not the people who need the benefit, the patients who are participating. The whole reason for doing this is for the benefit of freaking patients. So if they're not benefiting at the end of the day, why even create the system? Because I think that's another ruse in place here. I don't think that, and again, I'm borrowing from the future. I'm borrowing trouble here by making this claim, but I think it's an accurate rendition of what the future may look like, given the scenario spelled out in that bill, which, again, the vast majority of the bill speaks to the creation of this board and what the board has the power to do. I think it makes it an omnipotent force. And it could drastically change from governorship to governorship because it is all appointed.
Yeah.
So
it'd be, so when Governor Snyder appoints the board, you have 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats. If a Democratic governor gets in 2018, it'd be the reverse of that for the board.
Well, I can see right now if somebody like Duchard gets voted out of office, highly unlikely, but in the instance that it did, he resigns there. Maybe he resigns as sheriff and takes a place on the marijuana board at the governor's request.
Probably. And there's these emergency powers, too, that can be kicked in. So what's that going to be for? Is that going to be to kick a few places open right off the bat to make sure something's going on? Is that going to be to take control of it and never really allow something to go? I mean, of course, conspiratorially, I'm concerned.
We're certainly jaded.
Things are hanging around up there.
Right, certainly jaded at this point because, again, we're leaving this in the hand of an inept legislature that can't even figure out how to fix the frickin' roads here in the state.
Well, I mean,
or for crying out loud, how not to keep the water supply of a major city unpoisoned.
It's really strange.
Or how about better yet, keeping the kids of an impoverished community in school and educated with non-dilapidated buildings and actual books that you can read from.
The budget was balanced. The bottom line was satisfied, man. It's okay if cities fall apart in the meantime.
Well, wait a minute. Isn't the purpose of having a school system to teach children? If you can't teach them if there's leaky walls because their pipes are broken, you can't drink the water because the drinking fountain is in disrepair, the bathrooms and toilets are plugged up, the ceiling is leaking water. These are not places where you can. This is not conducive to an education. If you're busy hungry because you haven't eaten this morning because your impoverished parents can't afford to give you breakfast but can give you dinner when you get home, you're not likely to be a very attentive student. And if the student isn't learning here, why are we spending all this money at all on the education system? Why don't we just hire a bunch of babysitters and let it be done?
Well, that's what happens when you treat government as a business. Governments govern businesses; they aren't businesses. And when you do that, you run into these types of issues. And whether or not the people of Michigan remain apathetic and allow this to continue, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I have an instance. Here's a couple of examples just out of the barrel, just in my own neighborhood. I have a relative who is a high school senior, and there's been really a sham done by the local school board here, where he has not gotten but D's and E's for the past 3 years in school. And yet they've passed him from grade to grade to grade. And although he's not going to have enough credits at the end of the year to graduate, they are going to let him walk and get a piece of paper with his friends. I don't understand how the school board is not held accountable to passing the student on without finding the clock that lets this guy tick in a school. How can you pass him from grade to grade and let him graduate, walk with his friends, and get an empty piece of paper that means nothing because it doesn't even have a diploma written on it? I mean, this is in a non-impoverished community. This isn't a community with money that they can contribute towards schools. There's no excuse for this kind of behavior or acceptance from our public school systems. I mean, this is just one example, but you go into Detroit, you go into Flint, you go into Grand Rapids or other cities, you've got some real problems in the public education system that aren't being addressed by this very legislature. Why are they busy digging their heels into the marijuana question when they can't even get their schools and their roads and their water systems straight?
They get money for marijuana. They would have to spend money if they don't want to on roads.
There you go. So cut off.
By the way, I'll have a little news here for people. I've heard through the grapevine that former Senate Majority Leader Richard Richardville might throw his hat in the ring for governor. And what reminded me of him was that right before he left, he totally kicked the can on the whole road funding thing and put it up for a vote at like a spring, during the spring election or something like that, a vote on whether or not $1 billion should be used for the road, plus all these other weird considerations got thrown in there, and the voters showed up and turned it down because it was kind of bizarre.
Wasn't Richardson in place when he was in place when they did the Walsh bills, wasn't he?
He was there. Yep.
I didn't view him as a favorable guy towards the marijuana issue.
He's not horrible with it, but he's a politician, so I mean, he actually through his committee passed some stuff. It just didn't go any further than that before he left office. He was there right at the end, when the things failed in 2014.
I think the Republicans have a tough toe to hoe. A tough row to hoe. There you go. A tough line to toe is what I was starting to say, and then it turned into row to hoe. Ooh.
A tough hoe to row.
Yeah, there you go. You don't want to be rowing that hoe, you might end up in jail. So I think they've got a tough line to toe, given the giant weight that they've been left with as a ball and chain by Governor Snyder. I think that there's really not much of a wing and a prayer outside of the districting that they've managed to finagle, the redistricting that they did, so they can keep some players in place. Outside of that, I don't think there's a chance in hell many of these guys are going to get reelected. They've really screwed the pooch so badly.
Yeah, well, they're not part of this election, the Senate anyway. They did where all the gerrymandering took place, but they also allow for anonymous, huge donations to political campaigns. They try to eliminate the straight ticket voting. That there's Public Act 7 Public Act 142 that was Senate Bill 776. We know that when the straight ticket bill was being passed, there was an accompanying bill that would have made absentee voting easier and more efficient and opened up the guidelines for who can use it and when. And so even though we would have had one thing limiting voters, there would have been another thing offering up a way to make it easier to vote. That was not only just discarded, but they went on to add an appropriations measure to the straight ticket voting bill so that it could not be subject to the referendum process and stopped that way by the people. The people had voted twice already to say they wanted it.
Wait, just a minute. So you've described to me a scenario that I didn't know that was there and that I didn't know was even legal, and it probably is not. They actually wrote a bill that said this bill is immune from the petition process?
Yeah, because, all right, so like, just like on a statewide level, just like you can on local level, if the governing body, creates new law, the citizens can utilize the referendum process and get enough signatures and force that new policy change or law to ballot, see if everybody really wants it or not. And so you can do that on a statewide level too, but you can't do it if it's included with a budgetary issue. So they added an appropriations component to the ticket board so that you could not use the referendum process on it. So not only did they get rid of a good bill, they made the shitty bill even harder to do anything about.
Oh, geez. See, these guys are experts at how to screw the pooch, aren't they? I mean, really, they are.
They are. We were when we started this thing thinking, we're going to get something passed, didn't realize the fucking shit we were involved in, the black ops and the experience and all that kind of stuff, and all those industry groups who purport to come from the cannabis community who supported these bills were just toyed with, just pawns.
All right.
And they don't really realize that they think they accomplished something.
Jamie from Third Coast Dispensary in Ypsilanti, Michigan at 19 North Hamilton Street. I thank you for coming on the show tonight. We've gone commercial free on this topic as long as I think we can. I think we do have to take a commercial break. Are you interested in coming back, or are you gotta beat the streets?
I gotta hit it, man. But what a nice long show, and it included a lot of me, so I'm sure it'll work out well.
Well, I'm sure it didn't include as much of you as you would have liked to.
Yeah. When David was on, I wasn't really involved that much, but I enjoyed listening to him. I agree with him almost across the board.
David's a good man. All right, Jamie, go do your thing. Thank you for so much kind information. It's something that I think the listeners of this show should be able to put in their pocket and actually do something with. It's all about decisions, people. We'll be right back after the commercial break with more news about stuff going on today. Maybe Matt Blaster will show up. We'll find out after these messages.
You're getting the full melt.
Your pets aren't just animals, they're members of your family. That's why we are excitedly wagging our tail about our hemp-based product that caters specifically to your best friend. Hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats, and really all kinds of pets. Hemp oil drops are made from virgin, cold-pressed organic hemp oil. Our extraction process ensures the highest quality oil for your pet, with superior taste, smell, and nutrition. We hold ourselves to the highest standards, never using heat, chemicals, or preservatives in making our hemp oil products for pets. Pick up a bottle of hemp oil drops today at select retailers or online at hempwell.com. Hempwell, hemp health for pets.
Attention. Get ready to write down a very important number.
Michael does not know how to fail. Second place is loser.
If you have a medical marijuana case and need legal representation, call the best, attorney Michael Comorn.
He's very passionate in the courtroom.
Getting the best outcome requires quick legal action, and it needs to start with one call, toll-free to attorney Michael Comorn. 800-656-3557. Write it down, 800-656-3557.
Michael Comorn gave us our life back.
Attorney Michael Comorn. Vigorous criminal defense.
Ram trucks are reaching new heights when it comes to capability and efficiency. The Ram Heavy Duty is the most capable full-size pickup on the road today. And the Ram 1500 is the most fuel-efficient full-size pickup ever. So what does that mean? It means Ram trucks are built for the long haul. Ram, America's longest-lasting pickups.
RootMetrics, in the nation's largest independent study, tested wireless performance across the country. Verizon won big with 153 state wins. AT&T got 38, Sprint got 2, and T-Mobile got 0. Verizon also won first in the U.S. for data, call, speed, and reliability. AT&T got text. Stuck on an average network? Join Verizon, and we'll cover your cost to switch.
Introducing Sacred Elements, a place for natural and alternative healing for the mind, body, and soul. Sacred Elements. It's one place, all solutions.
Registered, licensed, certified, ordained.
Sacred Elements.
Massage, hypnosis, Reiki.
Sacred Elements.
Raindrop, aroma and color therapy, body detox, ministry, life coaching, weight and nutrition counseling.
Sacred Elements. Next to the Sweet Leaf, 400 South Dorr Highway, Flint.
11 to 7 daily, closed Sunday.
Call 810-259-2570.
Play-Doh Compound can help kids practice communication skills. Start by presenting the visual of the letter or word. Then ask them to mold the Play-Doh compound into the shape of the letters. It's an effective way to foster speech and even writing.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience, bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Dorr Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
My name is Kubo. When people say Kubo, they're talking about the best animated movie of the year.
Whoa, show off.
Kubo is captivating.
You got my attention.
Kubo is charming.
Don't even. Grumpy monkey.
Kubo is an unforgettable adventure that will delight fans of all ages. Like me?
Yes! Oh boy.
Kubo in theaters and Real D 3D. Rated PG.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
All right, so much to do. I'm hearing some other noise. Running down some of the stuff that happened in the news. Recent action alerts, according to the Normal newsletter, which I get all the time. You know, my friend Ray Koga would say that Normal is nothing more than a front organization for, big cannabis. It really doesn't care about patients. I disagree. That's a controversial subject. This is their newsletter, though. Delaware, the governor there signing medical cannabis expansion measure, buoy for Delaware. Missouri, the governor there signs a marijuana expungement measure. And senators introduce a cannabidiol research expansion act on the federal level. So you can go check out some of those stories on Normal's website at normal.org. Check out. There's also a final video in a 3-part series debunking the myths about marijuana. So go check that out. Also, in the news, if you look up, if you Googled marijuana news, you'll find today a lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff's been going on that we just haven't had time to chime in about. Frankly, you might be listening to this show from this studio location for one of the final times. I think there may be an eviction take place here sometime in the next 10 days. Thursday's the big day. We'll find out at a trial whether or not I'm allowed to still, do the show from this location with my service dog. Because they're trying to be evicted from this studio over a service dog. Trying to say that I don't have a service dog. Trying to say that somehow that service dog must be dangerous. It's got some history of biting people and pets. It's going to... None of it's true. None of it's true. It seems to me to belie facts when, as a disabled person, because I am disabled in a couple of ways. Clearly, the federal government's determined that I'm disabled. Clearly, it's good enough for the state of Michigan in a couple of departments. The Driver's Bureau recognizes my disability. The people at the Medical Marijuana Act recognize my disability. I have no problem with the service dog at any other location. They find him charming and happy and very well behaved. Never has gotten in a fight with another dog. He has taken action to defend himself against attack. Most recently against an Akita on the National Guard bridge walk there. The National Guard was there. They say they didn't have a service dog there. They say they don't employ service dogs. I have to believe them and take them at their word. But there were definitely people in Desert Storm garb with an Akita that attacked my service dog unprovoked. And he's got a bite wound to show for it. He bit he's got a tooth wound in his cheek, which is still healing from something that happened over a week ago. So I'm concerned about who was in the military garb. There were 3 of them with this dog who happened to be rather excited. And as a dog trainer, I could recognize right away by looking at the video that I happened to catch by accident of the dog and its handlers, at least from the backside, because they were in front of me and were moving slower than I was. There was a pregnant woman nearby. I'll have to post a video. I think I posted it on Facebook if you want to look it up on my Facebook page. I also got some stills from the video. The video's been slowed down and enhanced, but the Akita attacked my dog. And my dog didn't respond in an aggressive way whatsoever. He stood his ground, and he was calm and submissive. He was excited about the other dog, but when a dog attacks you, you're going to be excited. That being said, the dog has never bitten anybody or anything, is playful only, and is calm and submissive because that's the way I trained him. I'm the animal trainer here. I mean, that's what I do. I've done it for decades. It just takes knowing animal psychology, not treating the animal as a person, not feeling bad for the animal when you're trying to rehabilitate it, not, knowing how to be a pack leader, knowing how to, assert yourself calmly. It's calm assertiveness that gets you respect from a dog. I'm just saying there's a lot of keys to the control of an animal like a service dog, because service dogs are especially trained for public access and are trained. This dog is trained in multiple ways to assist with what I can't do for myself given my physical condition. So it belies thinking on my part that somehow a judge might side with a landlord in an effort to evict you from the premises which you own but lease the property for. Because when they do that, eventually they're going to try and steal this building from me. I own it. I bought it. It belongs to me. I've owned it since I lived here 7 years ago. And have been a respectful member of the community and a loving neighbor and a kind friend to many members in the community who all, I believe, think that, that we should be able to stay and that the dog here is not a threat in any way, including the person that had a dog that had an engagement with my dog, although she probably disagrees with the fact that her dog bit my dog. She didn't get to see it because she didn't have that perspective. My dog was standing over her dog. Little dog jumped up and bit. No way to see it. So I get that point of view. But it's all on video somewhere, and this is going to all transpire in front of a judge on Thursday, and we'll find out if I'm able to broadcast from this studio henceforth. Because if the judge agrees with the landlord and takes the position that this dog isn't a service dog or that I don't qualify for a service dog or he's not trained as a service dog or is another way not a service dog, then they're going to throw me out of here. And then there's the argument about whether the dog is a danger and that there's no reasonable accommodation requirement under the law. That's the argument that's going to take place here on Thursday. Look, I would much rather be in that situation than many of my friends in the cannabis community who now have to cover their asses with whatever they can to keep them from being targeted by the members of the law enforcement community who have a concerted, incentive to go after them now that these bills are starting to slide down the pike. And I'm saying that I'm convinced at this point that they are going to come down the track like a bullet train. And that many people are going to be caught off guard. Some of them probably haven't even heard about this yet. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen quickly. And then when it does, I think law enforcement's going to react, and I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's not going to be good for many good people in this community. There have been some who have misbehaved or acted inappropriately, but you get that in all crowds, and they certainly don't represent the whole. Yet they're going to be depicted that way. So goes the life in this world. But you're probably listening to this show for one of the last times. I'm convinced that this eviction is going to take place. We've got an attorney. We've got some paperwork in place, and there's all kinds of evidence and stuff backing up the position that this guy is a service dog. You need some plea action there, Mr. Jace? The studio dog has awoken. We've done an extraordinarily long program tonight, and he's been very patient because we've gone past his feeding time. And when the show concludes in another, 15 minutes or so, that's the first thing that I'm going to do. In the meanwhile, the dog is asking to go outside, aren't you? Is that what you're trying to tell me? What do you want? Oh, that's the thing. I told him that I taught him a long time ago because he wasn't potty trained when I got him. Had never had an opportunity to be potty trained or have leadership to show what that is. He was always chained to a piece of wood, a very short chain since he was a puppy with a birth defect. He's got a birth defect in his elbow. Wasn't socialized with people or animals, and was very confused and frightened when I got him here. But I was able to assess this dog very quickly and gain his trust and respect very quickly. And he's never shown any signs of aggression whatsoever. It's always been a very intent want to focus on me because I exerted the leadership that he needed. And I gave him things that he didn't have before. I saw this dog run for the first time in his 2-year lifespan. For the first time, I was the first guy to get to see this dog run. And it was one of the most joyful things I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I cried with joy when I saw that dog run because I knew he had never done it before. So I provide something for the dog that the dog otherwise wouldn't get. And the dog provides something for me that I otherwise wouldn't have. And I depend upon that. And I love him for it. And I will never do anything to allow anyone to disassociate me with this dog. So when we come back, there's more stuff that happened in the news. Amongst them, the Canadians saying to the U.S., hey, You're going to have to change your policy because your marijuana border policy about marijuana is ludicrous. There's some governor stuff happening all over the place. The New Mexico State Fair kicks out a cannabis plant. Some more happenings as we close this end of a very long radio show here on the Full Melt program. Stand by.
You're getting the Full Melt.
Promotional consideration provided by NoSmell.com, pioneering the storage market for cannabis users. The NoSmell patented bag technology offers users 100% smell-proof detection from even the most sophisticated of noses. NoSmell.com, so nobody knows. When placing your order for a no-smell bag, make sure to use discount code FULLMELT and take 10% off the entire order. Learn more about no-smell technology at NoSmell.com. If you missed the last Full Melt show,
you missed a lot.
All right, so there's this idiot reporter out in Grand Rapids today. I saw her on a promo for some show she's doing about kids and drugs, and she's interviewing a policewoman and a prosecutor. Check this out.
These things sound like something that like drug addicts would use. Are regular teenagers using butane?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, when you are out there, you're seeing kids are you seeing it younger and younger? Are you seeing it used in homes more frequently? What's actually happening?
Okay, that's a stupid question, you old bat. Can you come up with an original reporter's question? One that somebody can actually answer?
Is it addictive? Is it something that's going to get a kid in trouble? Can people manage their use?
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest myths.
Again, I just have to take issue with this. Wood TV in Grand Rapids, this lady needs to study up before she sticks a microphone in an official's face and asks an idiot question. When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you. Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Dorr Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571. 571.
My moderate to severe chronic plaque psoriasis made a simple trip to the grocery store anything but simple. So I had an important conversation with my dermatologist about Humira. He explained that Humira works inside my body to target and help block a specific source of inflammation that contributes to my symptoms. In clinical trials, most adults taking Humira were clear or almost clear, and many saw 75% and even 90% clearance in just 4 months.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections, including tuberculosis. Serious, sometimes fatal infections and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Before treatment, get tested for TB. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Ask about Humira, the #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists. Clearer skin is possible.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio Show.
Oh, Father, tell me, do we get what we deserve? Oh, we get what we deserve. And where down we go.
You know, when the likes of Rob Ford, God rest his soul, died from cancer. Did you know that? I didn't know that until recently. I missed that day in the news, paying so much attention to these other issues in this country. Rob Ford was the late former mayor of Toronto, Canada, and he was serving since 2014 after he got out of rehab there, reelected as a councilman, and he was serving that term when he died in March of this year. When you get people of the likes of Rob Ford in the Canadian government, because the Liberal Party's taken over in Canada now. And, they've vowed to, as part of the party platform, they say, elect us and we will legalize marijuana in Canada. And that's what they're going about doing. But the Canadian officials there are now slamming the marijuana policy on U.S. border as ludicrous. Oh, geez. It's a late day. A high-ranking Canadian office last week slammed the ludicrous decision of a U.S. border agent to permanently deny entry to a Canadian man who admitted to using marijuana years before he attempted to visit the U.S. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation reported that Matthew Harvey, a Canadian medical marijuana card holder, was permanently banned from the U.S. in 2014 after telling customs agents that he had smoked marijuana recreationally before obtaining his medical marijuana card. See, this is why you don't talk to the police, because they're idiots. Harvey was not carrying any marijuana at the time of his detainment at the border. This does seem to be quite a ludicrous situation because, as you say, not only is the state of Washington, but 3 or 4 other jurisdictions in the U.S. have legalized marijuana, Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale told CBC News. The latest federal survey data indicate that a little less than half of American adults have used marijuana at some point in their lifetimes. Marijuana use remains illegal for all purposes under federal law. Any foreign national who admits to having violated his home country's controlled substance laws at any point in the past can be considered ineligible for admission to the U.S. So this is I think, something that the Trump bandwagon might jump on. If they saw this in the news, if this was brought up to Trump in the news, he would say, yes, hell yes, now we're going to build a Canadian border. We're going to keep those Canadians out. Those pot-smoking hippies. Boy, especially if you get somebody like, Mike Pence or Chris Christie. I think still if you put both those guys in a room, one's going to eat the other. It's just a foregone conclusion. You don't leave Chris Christie in a room with somebody too long because there will only be Chris Christie left. In other words, making it an admission to a U.S. CBP, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol Protection Officer, that you previously violated controlled substance laws in Canada can result in a permanent bar, wrote immigration lawyer Henry Chang for the Huffington Post. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party have pledged to push for legalization of the recreational use of marijuana in 2017. Ralph Goodale, the public safety minister, told CBC that the current practice of strict prohibition in Canada and the U.S. isn't working. And he's right. In Canada, we're moving in an orderly way to a new regime that will include tight restrictions and regulation and taxation. And at the end of the day, we will be more effective in keeping marijuana out of the hands of kids, he said last week. And again, I would say he's right. Matthew Harvey isn't the only Canadian to be denied entry on account of past marijuana use. The CBC spoke with an immigration lawyer who said he's represented dozens of Canadians in similar situations. People entering the U.S. from Canada aren't asked about prior marijuana use as a matter of course, but certain circumstances, often at the discretion of the individual border agents, can trigger such questioning. In the case of Matthew Harvey, his career in British Columbia's legal medical marijuana industry may have caused him to be flagged for an increased scrutiny. In another case, an individual was detained for questioning after Border Patrol agents found a pouch inscribed with the words "weed money" in his car. The pouch contained neither weed nor money. People who are banned from the U.S. on account of past drug use can still enter the U.S. if they successfully apply for an advanced permission permit. The permit costs $585 and must be renewed periodically. Other types of criminal behavior present no barrier to entry. A DUI conviction, for instance, does not on its own prevent a person from entering the U.S., according to Customs and Border Protection. If Canada legalizes marijuana in 2017, it would be likely present additional complications. The current law prevents entry for people who admit to having used drugs illegally, but by the letter, it does not ban people from crossing the border if they use drugs legally. This could create a situation where an agent denies entry to a person not because they currently use marijuana legally, but because they used it illegally some point in the past. There are certain ironies about the current American position that we will certainly be very, vociferous in putting before them, said Public Safety Minister Goodale, and trying to ensure that Canadians are treated properly and fairly with a lot of common sense instead of the rather ridiculous situation that's emerged in the last number of days. There was a correction of the story, an earlier version of the story, misstated how many American adults have used marijuana. That number is less than half. And that was from the Washington Post. And was told just today, the day after September 11th. It amazes me to this moment. And we didn't do a show on September 11th, but it does amaze me that 15 years have gone by since that ugly day in our history. It is the millennials. Well, I guess it's Generation X's, because the millennials were just born, right? It's 2001. They don't even remember this happening. You'd only be 1 year old at the time the Trade Center went down if you're a millennial. 15 years have gone by. And really, these people are getting ready to graduate high school now. I mean, that's where they're at. They're driving now. They're making their purchases. They've already been formed in way of what they like and what they don't like by corporate America. They've learned through Facebook and other means what the millennials represent. And right now, they represent a threat to marijuana policy all across this country. And incidentally, the millennials don't give a boo about marijuana. They just don't care. I think they agree that it's terrible policy to arrest people for pot. But I think they've given it consideration, and when they become of voting age in very short order, I think the powers that be are going to have to shake a little bit in their boots, because things of old will not be made new again. Governor Doug Ducey gets his wish after prompting for a fact check on marijuana safety. This is from KTAR.com, obviously out in the West Coast there. It's certainly past the Mississippi there in Arizona. Governor Doug Ducey prompted someone to check the facts on marijuana in a speech on Friday. Ducey, against the vote for marijuana legislation coming in November in the state of Arizona, made several statements on the drug, including the broad unintended consequences of the drug, and saying, "I don't think that any state became stronger by being stoned." Words of the governor in Arizona. "I would check your facts when you say something is not addictive, that something safer than alcohol," he said in a press conference on Friday. As it turns out, the Washington Post did just that. One of the remarks referred to marijuana users as people that are addicted and abusing drugs. The Washington Post said that it is addictive, but the addiction comes for 9% of those who use it. The standout statement by Ducey is him claiming that alcohol is safer than marijuana. The fact check, however, proved otherwise. For starters, as noted above, marijuana users are less likely to become dependent on the drug than drinkers. Overall, research suggests that 15% of drinkers become dependent on alcohol. Marijuana is also considerably less toxic to the human body than alcohol. Compared to marijuana, there is a much smaller difference between recreational dose of alcohol and a fatal dose. If, say, 5 shots could get you drunk, 15 could kill you. With pot, on the other hand, there's currently no known fatal dosage level, at least not any that any human being could reasonably consume in one sitting. There's also other areas that favor marijuana in this discussion, according to the Washington Post, such as impairment numbers related to car crashes jumping substantially for alcohol, while they have minimal change for marijuana. See, this is what the police like to leave out of their statistics in their attempt to put in mandates like they have in California on a per se restriction on consumption. So rather than proving your impairment, which is really what the claim is, look, you're in a condition you shouldn't be driving. You're impaired. Rather than proving your impairment by demonstration, which is what they used to have to do before they came up with these per se limits, now all we've got to prove is a number. That's all we got to do is we just got to sample and get that number. And once we got that number, we can tell you if you're impaired based on the law or not. Whether you're actually impaired or not, whether you are a danger to the public or not for driving this way is meaningless in our book. We just want to attach the number because it's easier for us to prosecute you and call you a criminal and jack up your rates and put you to jail and get some tax money. This is all about making money for those guys that make money off the criminal justice system. They are dead without legislation like that. What else is going on real quick, because we are almost completely out of time. We should be out of I mean, I don't even know. Do we run the ticker out? Are we still on Spreaker? Let me even check. Spreaker might have said, screw you, you're done. No, actually, technically, there's just a few more minutes left on Spreaker, so we managed to get away with our host not kicking us off for the night. Oh, I'd have to upgrade to the pro version, the above the pro grade version, to get endless broadcasting. I think right now we can only do 3 hours at a time. We're almost at that limit. In fact, we are 1 minute away from 160 minutes. So that's definitely in excess of 2 hours. YouTube's going to love us for taking up all that data. Last story I got to give you before we get off the air here is, oh, what happened there? Something terrible happened. Oh, I got to do this. Lost my story list. Marijuana plant safely cut from the New Mexico State Fair. There was a display there, according to KRQE News 13. I don't understand why television news stations don't put the news in there with like real video. They don't put the video from their TV in there. They just publish these stories with a picture like they're the newspaper. This is News 13 at KRQE in Albuquerque. One display at the New Mexico State Fair has gone to pot. The Albuquerque News Journal reports that a display included at least one live cannabis plant was yanked from the fair on Thursday. Can you imagine eating your oversized turkey leg from the booth next door and you walk by the hippie tent and he's got a pot plant up in there? The Albuquerque Journal reports that a display that included at least one live cannabis plant was yanked from the fair Thursday. State health officials say grower Ultra Health didn't have the authority to display the cannabis plants publicly. Fair managers say they somehow overlooked the mention of a cannabis plant in the booth application submitted by Ultra Health. Whoopsie! Didn't see that part of the application. I should have read that part, right? Before we gave you the booth space. State fair managers say they somehow overlooked it. Owner Duke Rodriguez says he included a graphic depiction in his application that showed any plants would be on view in a secure area. Fair spokeswoman Erin Thompson says Rodriguez will get his $2,000 booth fee refunded. State Department of Health officials are looking into whether displaying the plant publicly was a violation of the law. See, you can't even look at the plant. Looking at that plant, oh, it's gonna seduce you. You're gonna become a pothead just by looking at it. I mean, it's gonna be contagious. You can't trust that cannabis thing. I'll bet you there's something special about that genetic strain of weed that you guys are all going to just turn into instant potheads. What has the world come to? I'll say that it's going to be a crazy and ugly place. If we get that Donald Trump in there, I think the world goes to hell in a handbasket real quick. Oh, gosh, just don't let that happen. Don't repeat the Bush thing. Don't do it again, you guys. They're narrowing the distance between those two candidates as the election process moves forward. Donald Trump trying to appear normal. Look, you guys, he's not normal in any way. This is a vampire hiding in disguise of a clown suit. Don't fall for them apples.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.